Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
Sikong Ju's gaze swept around the coffee shop. He did not see Liang, but he saw Chu Xia. The corners of his lips twitched slightly. He did not want to see that girl point too. The reason was very simple. He, Sikong Ju, was actually drunk and was forced to sleep with that girl. No matter what, it would bring shame to him point two. He found a seat far away from Chu Xia and sat down to wait for Liang too. Chu Xia's facial features were strained. She was embarrassed to say the least, and the man was so far away from her, too. She looked down on her flat stomach and braced herself to stand up and walk towards Sikong Ju point two. "Hey, you're here," she said, standing opposite Sikong Ju point two. Sikong Ju frowned and said in a bad mood, "I'm waiting for Liang, get out of my way, too." Chu Xia pursed her lips. She could tell how much the man disliked her. She wanted to leave, but she really didn't want to have an abortion and marry an old man point two. She sat across from Sikong Ju. "Either the Duke is looking for you, or I am. It was me who sent the message, too." Sikong Ju narrowed his eyes. "You stole Liang's phone? You sure have guts. Do you know what kind of crime it is to do that to the Duke, too?" Chu Xia sucked in a breath of cold air. "I have a few words to say to you. After that, I will leave. If Liang is going to punish me, so be it. I'll admit what I did, too. Speak." Sikong Ju leaned against the back of the chair. You want to know why she went through so much effort to meet with him point two. Chu Xia lowered her head. Her face flushed red. Her hand was twirling her skirt, and she was so embarrassed that she couldn't barely say a word point two. I'm too. Sikong Ju was a little dazed. He didn't expect this woman to be so shy. Not after what had happened last time they saw each other point two. After a moment of silence, he lost his patience and said, "Are you going to say it or not? If not, I'm leaving too." Seeing that the man was about to leave, Chu Xia quickly grabbed his arm. "Don't go, I'm pregnant. Will you marry me too?" Sikong Ju felt like he was struck by lightning. "You want me to marry you, and you're pregnant? Are you kidding me too?" He'd had a lot of women in his life. They were all acting for the sake of themselves. He didn't want to marry anyone point two. Chu Xia's heart thudded when she heard the man's words. "The child is yours, so of course I wanted to find you, too. If you say it's mine, then it's mine. Who knows how many boyfriends you have?" Sikong Ju complained point two. A girl who could take the initiative to rape a man must have seen a lot of men in her time. He didn't believe that he was the only man she had slept with, too. Chu Xia's face turned pale. She'd thrown away all her dignity and begged him to marry her. But he did not believe that the child was his point, too. "How can I make you believe that the child is yours? We can get married first. After the child is born, we can have a test, too." "Oh, you're very thoughtful. It will be 9 months before the child is born. And you want me to believe you're telling the truth for all this time?" Sikong Ju looked at the girl with disdain. "The child might not even be mine, and that'll be 9 months wasted. And anyway, even if it is mine, I don't want it, too." He took out a check from his wallet. "I will give you 100,000. Settle everything that needs to be settled. This is the first and last time. If you want to play such tricks again, don't blame me for what I might do, too." He threw the check in front of the woman point two. Chu Xia's heart clenched. It was one thing that he suspected the child was not his, but he also thought that she was trying to extort money from him, too. Sikong Ju looked at the wounded girl's eyes. For a moment, he thought that he was wrong. It was not until he saw Chu Xia pick up the check that he smiled contemptuously. It was indeed for the money, too. Chu Xia tightened her grip on the check. She tore it into pieces and threw it directly at the man's head. She didn't look at the man again. Such an insult was enough, too. Sikong Ju raised his hand and fiddled with the confetti in his hair. He looked at the girl who had run away in shock. She did not want money, too. A figure walked into the cafe and sat across Sikong Ju. He looked at the man, his hair full of confetti, with a devilish look point two. Such a worried face. Could it be that you failed to pick up a girl and got picked on by a girl instead? He teased point two. Liang had watched Gong Machin leave the school and searched his phone after getting it back off that wretched girl. Naturally, he saw the message Qin Sheng sent to Sikong Ju point two. If Qin Sheng was not pregnant, then he guessed it was Chu Xia who was pregnant. And it seemed that she was. Qin Sheng stole the phone and asked Sikong Ju to meet in this cafe. Liang had already guessed what had happened. Point 2. Sikong Ju's lips curled into a bitter smile. How much worry can you have? It's like a group of eunuchs going to a brothel. 2. That was the true state of his current mood. The girl's reaction made him feel that she was not asking for money, but asking for him too. A soft sigh sounded in the bottom of his heart, filling him with sadness. Point 2. Eunuchs? Haha. How can eunuchs make people pregnant? How much did you give to her to make her run away anyway? Liang asked. Point 2. Sikong Ju glared at Liang. You knew? I gave her 100,000, and she tore it up in my face, too. Liang sat up straight. It's not easy. She must not know that you give girls a bottle of medicine to solve these kinds of problems, right? 2. Sikong Ju kicked Liang's leg. Get lost. They asked for it. They deliberately made themselves pregnant so that they could blackmail me. 2. Actually, the most economical way would be to marry Chu Xia. I think that girl is pretty good looking, so it's not a loss to marry her. You don't have to spend any money then, Liang said. Point 2. Forget it. Sikong Ju's eyes portrayed so many emotions and no one could understand him. Aren't you staying at the Qin family mansion? Asked Qin Sheng if Chu Xia will have an abortion. 2. He thought of the hatred in her eyes when she ran away. He believed that even if Chu Xia was beaten to death, she wouldn't give birth to his child too. All right, I'll help you and ask Qin Sheng later. At the same time, I'll settle the debt with that stupid girl for stealing my phone. Liang's eyes flashed with a wicked light. Point 2. 2. In the Qin family's mansion, Qin Sheng went back to her room early to review her homework after eating. She wanted to give her uncle a surprise. Point 2. When she thought of how shocked the man might be, her lips curved into a happy smile. Point 2. In the blink of an eye, the corners of her lips slid down again. She thought of the crying Chu Xia again. That damn Sikong Ju had actually insulted Chu Xia, too. She was angry. Sikong Ju didn't want Chu Xia and the baby. One day, she would make Sikong Ju regret what he'd done. He would kneel down and beg Chu Xia, and then be kicked out of the solar system by her, too. Gong Machin walked into the room with a stack of picture albums. His big hand caressed the girl's head. Take a break and see what kind of cake you like to eat, too. Qin Sheng took the picture book. It was filled with pictures of the world's top cakes. The prices of the huge 12-layer cakes made her speechless. It actually cost 10 million, too. Uncle, this is so expensive. You don't have to buy such an expensive cake, too. It has to be the best for you. Not only the cake, but also the fireworks. Choose the type of fireworks you like, too. Gong Machin pulled out the picture book under the cake book. Point 2. This was the first time he had held a large party for her. It was also the last time. He wanted to give her all the love he could give her. After that, they would be separated, and he wanted her to remember him, too. His heart was bleak, his hope exhausted. Point 2. Anything is fine. If Uncle buys it for me, I like it all, Qin Sheng said as she stood up and wrapped her arms around the man's neck. Point 2. Gong Machin carried the girl and walked to the sofa. He sat on the sofa, while the girl sat on his lap. Point 2. Then I'll arrange it myself. What about the evening gown and shoes? I'll order them for you too. 2. Qin Sheng was stunned by her uncle. She had attended many banquets before. There had never been a time when the evening dress had been specially ordered in advance, as if it was a wedding too. Okay, you're in charge of earning money to support me, and I'm in charge of being as beautiful as a flower. Uncle, can you do me a favor, too? What do you want? Gong Machin asked. Point 2. He wanted her to tell him everything she wanted in her life. He had bought everything he could, and he would buy more. Point 2. I want you to help solve Chu Xia's matter. Her father forced her to marry an old man to pay off his gambling debts. Can you say something to stop the old man from marrying Chu Xia? Qin Sheng said. Point 2. Silly, if I don't let this old man marry Chu Xia, her father will find another old man for her. Anyone who can give her father money can become Chu Xia's husband, Gong Machin said. Point 2. But Chu Xia is pregnant. She can't marry. I don't want her to abort the baby. That's a life. Qin Sheng raised her small head. Point 2. Gong Machin's hand touched Qin Sheng's head. If Chu Xia can't be responsible for that child for her whole life, the child will only become a burden. Instead of that, it's better to abort the child. That way, Chu Xia can have a future without any ties, too. Gong Machin knew very well what it meant for an 18-year-old girl to get pregnant before marriage. Once the child was born, it would be impossible for Chu Xia to find a good family to marry into point two. Was it really worth ruining her life for a child? Qin Sheng's lips formed into a straight line, and she looked up at the man. If you can't be responsible for me for the rest of your life, if I become a burden to you, would you abandon me, too? Gong Machin's heart suddenly sank, and he said, "No, you will always be my girl, too." His big hand grabbed the back of her head and pressed her into his arms. How could he abandon her, too? She was treasure in his hands and everything to him. He had persevered until today because of her point two. Qin Sheng rested her head on the man's shoulder and hooked her arm around his neck. I believe that Chu Xia would not treat the child as a burden, too. Gong Machin's eyes closed slightly. Love was only one word, but it was difficult to explain how hard it was. God only knew how much he had sacrificed for Qin Sheng point two. Could Chu Xia really afford all this, too? Qin Sheng's gaze suddenly landed on the promotional page on the sofa. It was pressed on the bottom page, revealing half of a necklace point two. She had only looked at half of it, and she was already in love with it. She got out of the man's embrace and reached out to pick up the promotional page point two. A beautiful pink gem necklace reflected in her eyes. The platinum necklace was inlaid with pink heart-shaped gems. It was threaded into a string, and below was a blue heart-shaped gem and a pink heart-shaped gem pendant. What was important wasn't the size, but the pink gemstone that was cut into the shape of a heart point two. The necklace also had a nice name, Sweetheart's Love. Its original name was Belum point two. Belum in Indonesian meant not yet, which meant a young girl who has not matured point two. The necklace was not only priceless, but also a real antique. It was once owned by Her Royal Highness Princess Salimah. It was a gift from her father, which meant that his daughter was still a young girl. It also meant his endless fatherly love for his daughter point two. "Uncle, what's this?" she asked point two. "This is a jewelry auction. This necklace is the most expensive antique in their auction. It's a pink diamond and a blue diamond. I plan to buy you a few pieces of jewelry at the auction. Tell me which one you like." Gong Machin asked point two. He had long seen the way the girl looked at the necklace. So, it was a pink diamond and a blue diamond. It must have been very expensive. Qin Sheng couldn't take her eyes off at point two. Qin Sheng opened the brochure and took a look at the price of Sweetheart's Love point two. She almost fainted. The starting price was hundreds of millions. She decisively closed the brochure. She had expected it to be expensive, but she didn't expect it to be that expensive. She didn't want Uncle to spend so much money on her point two. "I usually don't like jewelry. I don't dare to bring these things out even after I buy them. I don't know why I'm looking at it," she said with a smile. She was determined not to let the man see through her thoughts point two. Gong Machin stroked the girl's head with his big hand. Every time the little girl played tricks, she was so cute point two. "Okay, my Qin Sheng knows what she wants. You go and do your homework. Uncle will prepare a banquet for you," he said while patting the girls, but point two. Qin Sheng jumped down from the man's lap. "Uncle, thank you for your hard work. Here's your reward, too." She placed her hand on the man's cheek point two. She stopped pestering him then and got on with her work. The man wanted to give her a banquet, and she wanted to give him a surprise. That was why she had to study hard, too. Gong Machin walked out of the room and saw Nie Feng in the corridor. "President, Chu Xia is pregnant. Do you want me to arrest Chu Xia?" Nie Feng asked point two. He was extremely anxious about Gong Machin's illness. He did not expect Chu Xia to be pregnant. He thought that if he used Chu Xia and the baby to threaten Sikong-ju, he might be able to force Sikong-ju to reveal whether or not he was His Highness Yu. Of course, if he forced out his identity, he would be able to force out the antidote point two. Gong Machin knew what Nie Feng meant. Don't touch Chu Xia. Sikong-ju doesn't intend to have a child, nor does he care about Chu Xia. It's useless to capture her. Instead, it would just be hurting the innocent, too. But we don't have much time left. Nie Feng's brows furrowed into a knot point two. Think of another way. We can't touch Chu Xia. Gong Machin instructed point 2. Gong Machin handed the brochure to Nie Feng. Contact the owner of Sweetheart's Love for me as soon as possible. 2. Yes. Nie Feng took the pamphlet and left point 2. 2. Qin Sheng was in the room trying to solve her advanced mathematics problem when she heard a sound on the window. She got up and walked over. When she pulled open the curtains, she saw a devilish man sitting on her wide windowsill point 2. The moonlight shone on his body, making him have a seductive aura point 2. She opened the window. When did you learn to climb up to windows, too? Liang snorted helplessly. He would never tell Qin Sheng that Gong Machin had changed the locks on her door point 2. Don't you think this is very romantic? Under the moonlight, you are at the window, and I am outside the window. I am so close to you, but you are outside my heart. 2. Qin Sheng's lips twitched violently. Who asked you to climb to my window? 2. Her small face was so angry that it alternated between red and white. She had the heart to strangle this man to death. 2. You don't know how to appreciate this situation at all. If you don't like it, we can meet somewhere else to play. Liang flirted with the little woman shamelessly point 2. He loved to annoy this little vixen. He liked to tickle her until her hair stood in point 2. Qin Sheng raised her hand to push the man, but Liang grabbed her hand point 2. I'm not teasing you anymore. Let's talk about business, too. Qin Sheng was confused. There was business between them? What business, too? What are you doing? Qin Sheng asked point 2. Liang really wanted to say that he wanted to F***ck her, but he swallowed his words. He was afraid that the little girl would explode in anger and delay the proper business point 2. When is Chu Xia going for an abortion? He asked point 2. Qin Sheng frowned. Did Sikong Ju tell you? 2. It doesn't matter who told who. What is Chu Xia thinking? I heard that her family's financial situation isn't good. If she solves the problem, I can help talk to Sikong Ju and ask him to give Chu Xia money. 2. Qin Sheng's gaze landed on Liang. Problem? That's a life. Do you think the baby is just a problem? 2. What's the difference? Chu Xia can't afford it anyway. Why don't we just choose the best way to solve the problem? How much money does she want? Is 1 million enough? Liang asked point 2. Qin Sheng's lips twitched. Is Chu Xia the kind of woman who uses her pregnancy to extort money from others in your and Sikong Ju's eyes? 2. Not exactly. After all, Sikong Ju has his own faults. Who asked him to not wear a condom? He's causing trouble for himself. It can be considered a punishment, so that he can learn his lesson. Is 1 million enough? If it's not enough, I'll personally help Sikong Ju add more. Go and ask Chu Xia how much she wants, Liang said point 2. Qin Sheng's eyes flashed with a fierce light. She looked for Liang's small hand. Come here and I'll tell you something, 2. Liang leaned towards the woman. Say it, 2. Qin Sheng's hand pushed the man, hard point 2. Ah, Liang screamed. He was completely unprepared for the little woman's attack point 2. Qin Sheng immediately closed the window and drew the curtains, cursing Liang and Sikong Ju for the way they were dealing with the situation point 2. On the ground, Liang stood and looked up at Qin Sheng's window. Pushing him down from such a high place, this little woman was really vicious, too. If he didn't know martial arts and landed steadily on the ground, he would have broken his bones. There was no doubt point 2. Stupid girl, you dare to murder your future husband? Let's see how I will deal with you in the future. Liang thought to himself point 2. 2. The next morning, Gong Machin drove Qin Sheng to school. On the way, his phone rang. He swiped the screen and answered the call. The phone was in the phone holder. He pressed the loudspeaker on point 2. Qin Sheng heard a woman's voice coming from the speaker point 2. President Gong, don't forget your appointment at 9:00. 2. It was Yi Wei. Qin Sheng promised hadn't misheard. Yi Wei's voice was very gentle. She didn't know where Yi Wei came from, but she felt like maybe she was from Jiangnan point 2. Yes, I know. Gong Machin hung up the phone after he'd said that point 2. Qin Sheng's heart was twisting and contracting. Uncle, are you sick? 2. No, it's just a routine checkup. Don't think too much, Gong Machin explained point 2. Qin Sheng frowned. She remembered that Gong Machin had already had a checkup at the beginning of the year. Did he have to have a checkup twice a year, too? When did you and Yi Wei get to know each other? She asked straightforwardly point 2. The year I went abroad. Her medical skills were pretty good, so I brought her back to be my personal doctor, Gong Machin said casually, as if he had brought back some insignificant souvenir. Point two. Qin Sheng's heart sank. No one knew about the year Gong Machin went abroad. No one dared to ask, and she knew he wouldn't say that he brought Yi Wei back during that mysterious year. In other words, Qin Sheng knew that Yi Wei knew about that year, too. The feeling that she didn't know, but the other women knew, made her heart ache. Point two. We're here. What are you thinking about? Gong Machin looked at the quiet girl. Point two. Nothing, I'm going to school. Be safe on the road, and come back early. Qin Sheng reminded him worriedly. Point two. Gong Machin watched as Qin Sheng ran into the school gate with her backpack and smiled. The girl reminded him to go home early like a little wife. Point two. His eyes were suddenly filled with coldness, the brief warmth extinguished. He knew their days were numbered. Point two. He turned the steering wheel and drove to Yi Wei's private clinic. As soon as Qin Sheng entered the school gate, she saw Chu Xia walking with her head lowered. She ran over. Point two. Chu Xia, have you eaten breakfast? I brought some for you. She handed the lunchbox to Chu Xia. Point two. Chu Xia's eyes were red and swollen. It was obvious that she had cried. Point two. Thank you. I'll eat it when I have an appetite, too. Qin Sheng held Chu Xia's hand. What do you plan to do? Do you still want a baby? Don't worry. I've told my uncle that I'll definitely help you. Your family's 2 million debt is nothing. 2. No. If your uncle pays up, my father will still gamble and continue to owe. It's better this way. He owes money, and no loan shark will lend him the money. Point two. I've thought it through. There are still 2 weeks until the exam. After the exam, I'll take my mother and leave. We'll sell the house and go far away so that my father won't be able to find us again. Point two. I'll also want a baby, but he's already very pitiful. He's despised by his own father, too. As she spoke, tears uncontrollably rolled down from her eyes. Qin Sheng felt her heart ache when she heard this. Chu Xia was the person she admired the most. Because of Chu Xia's personality, she believed that she would definitely break out of her own world in the future. She would make something of her life. Point two. Well, hun, I will definitely support you. I want to be your son or daughter's godmother, too. All right, then let's make a deal. In the future, when you give birth to a baby, I'll be their godmother, and you'll be my baby's godmother. That way, we will never be separated, said Chu Xia. Point two. Qin Sheng nodded repeatedly. From being godmothers to each other's babies to their future relationship, they had happily decided it. However, they soon realized there was a long distance between ideal and reality too. 2. In the private clinic, Yi Wei walked into the office with a report. Gong Machin was still standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, as usual. The sunlight shone on the man's body, but it didn't make him look warm. Instead, it made him look even colder too. It seemed that even the sunlight couldn't warm him. Gong Machin turned to look at Yi Wei's frowning face. Is the result not good, too? Yi Wei took a deep breath. It's very bad. I can't suppress the poison in your body anymore. I can only guarantee that you have 1 month to live at most. 2. 1 month? That's enough. Gong Machin frowned slightly, but there was no trace of fear on his face. Point two. Yi Wei was stunned. Enough? Why would he say enough? She really wanted to detoxify him. To save him, too. Gong Machin walked to the sofa and picked up his blazer. He'd take off his blazer so that he could have blood taken from his arm. Point two. A piece of paper fell on the ground. Yi Wei quickly picked it up and saw the man's handwriting on it. It was a proposal for a banquet, the first social banquet for Qin Sheng. Point two. She suddenly understood what he meant when he said a month was enough. That was enough time for the banquet, too. Gong Machin raised his hand and took the proposal from the woman's hand. I'm leaving, too. He strode out of the room. Yi Wei took out her cell phone and dialed a number. Senior, have you found His Highness you for me? 2. Not yet, but many people in our industry suspect that it's Sikong Ju. You can try to find out from him. However, let me remind you that there's something strange about him. Anyone who gets close to Sikong Ju will die a strange death in the end. 2. What do you mean by dying mysteriously? Yi Wei asked, puzzled. Point 2. Because His Highness Yu's pharmaceutical technology is too high and hidden too deeply, many people in the medical community are curious about his identity. So many people went to investigate him. A few people died of strange diseases, such as the Africa plague, a terrible infectious disease. Point 2. But these people did not go to Africa. They got sick mysteriously, and it was only discovered that it was this diseases after they died. The only fortunate thing was that they all died alone at home and did not infect anyone else. And the places where they lived were all sealed, too. Yue was so shocked that her mouth drooped open. That kind of plague was too terrifying. Those who got it wouldn't live for more than 3 days. But why would that kind of virus be used, too? Thank you, Senior. I'll be careful, she said. Point 2. She wouldn't let herself die, and she definitely wouldn't let Gong Machin die. 2. When Qin Sheng finished school, she saw Nie Feng, who had brought her a gown. Miss Qin, the president asked me to bring this to you, Nie Feng said respectfully. Point 2. Am I going to attend the banquet? Qin Sheng was a little surprised. Point 2. It's an auction, so it's considered a banquet. After the auction, there will be a banquet. Here are 3 pieces. The president asked you to pick them. Nie Feng asked his subordinate to show Qin Sheng the clothes. Point 2. The auction was today, too. Qin Sheng suddenly remembered the brochure she read yesterday. It seemed that the auction would be held today. The pink diamond necklace appeared in her mind. Although she couldn't buy it, it was good to go and have a look, too. She poked Chu Xia, who was next to her. Come with me, too. Me? I'm not suitable, Aunt. Chu Xia was stunned. Point 2. What's not suitable? You're my friend. Let's go together. There are 3 evening gowns. You can wear the one I don't, Qin Sheng said. Point 2. Of the 3 evening gowns, she chose a pink one for herself and a light green one for Chu Xia. Point 2. Both evening gowns were short. The hem of the skirt was shaggy and reached the knees. Point 2. Qin Sheng had called Chu Xia because she wanted to find a good man for her friend at the auction. She didn't believe that there wouldn't be a good man to marry Chu Xia. She would find one who was a good character, she was sure. Point 2. After the 2 girls changed their clothes, Nie Feng drove them to the hotel where the auction was taking place. Qin Sheng saw 3 jewelry boxes in the car, which matched the 3 evening gowns. Point 2. Her hair clip was inlaid with pink crystals, which formed the pattern of cherry blossoms. The strings of crystals made Qin Sheng look even more pink. Chu Xia's was green crystal, and her style was lotus leaf, which suited her very well. Point 2. When the 2 girls came to the lobby of the hotel, they attracted the eyes of all the boys. The 2 girls were both innocent and charming. At such a young age, these successful men couldn't look away. Point 2. Chu Xia looked pretty good. She looks like a woman after dressing up. Liang sat on the sofa like a villain, his eyes looking at the girls who'd walked in. Point 2. Uffed. What do you mean she looks like a woman? Is she not a woman already? Sikong-ju was a little depressed. Point 2. He admitted that the girl was usually more manly than a man. But damn, did she look good tonight. Point 2. Have you really thought it through? I saw Qin Sheng introducing a boy to Chu Xia. If you don't want her, it doesn't mean that no one else wants her. Oh my, that was fast. Look, Chu Xia is sitting with that man, Liang said. Point 2. No, if you're interested, I'll let you have her, Sikong-ju said. Point 2. No matter how good she looks, she's not as good as my wife. Qin Sheng is so good. Liang's eyes never left Qin Sheng. Point 2. Huh, your wife? Seriously? Sikong-ju teased Liang. He couldn't stand Liang showing off. Point 2. Liang's lips twitched. I can marry whoever I want. What do you care? 2. Of course I don't care, but your future wife is now by someone else's side. She's someone else's girl. Sikong-ju jested. Point 2. Liang looked over and saw Qin Sheng beside Gong Machin. He didn't know what she was saying, but she was smiling like a cherry blossom. Have you thought about what jewelry you want? Gong Machin asked. Point 2. No, it's all too expensive. But how about these earrings? I think they'll accompany my evening dress well. Qin Sheng pointed at a pair of pink diamond earrings in the album. Point 2. The starting price was several $100,000, and it was estimated to sell for over $1 million, but it was the cheapest one here. Point 2. Qin Zixin walked over in a golden evening dress and deliberately got close to the man sitting on the sofa. Point 2. Third brother, Yunting and Yin Fei are both here. What do you think? She asked. Point 2. Qin Sheng looked up and saw Qin Zixin's figure. She lowered her head to look at herself. What a difference, too. Will my uncle be lured away? She secretly thought. Point 2. Yangding has nothing to do with the Qin family, said Gong Machin point two. Qin Zixian stood up unhappily. The man's face was expressionless, as though he didn't see anything point two. However, she understood the man's meaning. Qin Yunting was not a member of the Qin family any longer, so they didn't need to care about where Qin Yunting was point two. I know she's not. A few of our clients want to come over to toast. Do you want to meet them? She continued to ask for instructions point two. Everyone knew Gong Machin's rules. Without his consent, no one could privately chat with him. Today is an auction, not a business meeting. I don't want to be disturbed. Gong Machin said coldly point two. Qin Zixian pursed her lips. Okay, I'll go and deal with it, too. Qin Sheng's eyes were locked on Qin Zixian point two. What do you want to eat? I'll get Nye Feng to get it. Gong Machin asked point two. It wasn't time for the banquet yet. There was no food, but there were desserts and fruits set out point two. Papaya. Please give me a papaya, Qin Sheng said with ambition. She wouldn't let Qin Zixian show her up. Her uncle was hers. She needed to mark her territory point two. Nye Feng obediently went to get the papaya point two. Qin Sheng ate the papaya in big mouthfuls. She looked at Qin Yunting and Yin Fei, who walked in with glittering jewelry. She was a little surprised by their clothes. The jewelry they wore must have cost hundreds of thousands. How could they have so much money? 2. What surprised her even more was that Yi Wei and Ha Siki came. She could understand why Ha Siki was there. After all, the Ha family was a big family. But what the hell was Yi Wei doing here? 2. Yi Wei walked to Gong Machin's side as soon as she came in. President Gong, it's a coincidence that we meet again. 2. Gong Machin nodded slightly. Did you come by yourself? 2. Yes. I heard that there was an auction here, so I came to see it. Yi Wei said point 2. Take a seat. The auction will start soon. Gong Machin said point 2. Yi Wei sat on the sofa beside Gong Machin. She looked over at Sikong Ju and Liang, who weren't far away point 2. How could she make Sikong Ju expose his identity as His Highness Yu? 2. She frowned and reached into her purse, too. It wasn't until Yi Wei touched a few small particles in a plastic bag that her heart finally relaxed. With this thing, she would be able to test whether or not Sikong Ju was His Highness Yu. 2. Qin Sheng's little face sank as she took a bite of the papaya. Seeing Yi Wei sitting beside Gong Machin, she felt awkward. 2. Gong Machin stared at the little girl beside him, who seemed to have a grudge against the papaya. He stroked her head with his big hand point 2. I like eating small ones. They can be held with one hand, too. Qin Sheng spat out a mouthful of papaya. Her little face was red, and it was unknown if she was choking or embarrassed point 2. How did Uncle know what she was feeling embarrassed, too? Yi Wei stood up and handed a tissue to Qin Sheng. You have to chew slowly when you eat. You won't be able to digest it if you eat like this, too. Qin Sheng didn't take the tissue from Yi Wei. She didn't want to be friendly with Yi Wei. She skillfully took out a handkerchief from Gong Machin's pocket and wiped her mouth smugly point 2. Yi Wei stood awkwardly on the spot. She didn't know what to do with the tissue in her hand. Qin Sheng was obviously giving her a hard time. The people beside her were all looking at her too. Gong Machin took the tissue. Thank you, too. Yi Wei pursed her lips and looked at the man gratefully. It's okay, too. Qin Sheng felt uncomfortable. Her man actually gave Yi Wei a way out, too. She raised her hand, pushed away Gong Machin's hand, and moved closer to his ear. Uncle, why aren't you giving me all your attention? Why do you dote on the doctor, too? Qin Sheng's frustration bubbled up. Who asked him to help out Yi Wei, too? Gong Machin's brows sank. He hugged the girl tightly like a pair of pliers. What are you like, little girl? Qin Sheng, don't change for anyone. The person who loves you won't hurt you, because he only loves you. 2. The man's deep voice knocked on Qin Sheng's heart. It was even more charming and alluring than a piano D major point 2. She threw the papaya onto the coffee table. She only wanted him. He was enough point 2. Yi Wei couldn't hear what Gong Machin and Qin Sheng were saying. She only saw the two of them whispering. She sat beside the man, sadly. The man's doting gaze couldn't be ignored, too. As the auction bell rang, the auction began. It had to be said that every piece of jewelry auctioned was tempting. Qin Sheng looked at Yin Fei and Qin Yunting, who were raising their paddles frequently. The two of them had bought quite a few pieces of jewelry that night. They were so extravagant that it made her speechless. Point two. Of course, Qin Zixian was also speechless. It seemed that her niece was even more glamorous than her after she'd left the Qin family. 2. Yenting, you have to pay for the items you bid on. She couldn't help but blurt out. Point two. Auntie, I know. Qin Yunting rolled her eyes at her. Annie. Point two. Qin Zixian was choked by Qin Yunting. Yunting, where do you live now? 2. I live in a nightclub, Qin Yunting said indifferently. She raised her hand and bid on a pair of cufflinks. Point two. Qin Zixian was taken aback, shocked. Qin Sheng was more popular than her, but Qin Sheng wouldn't even live in a nightclub. 2. Qin Yunting looked at the people around her, who envied her with disdain. As she was kicked out of the Qin family, she would treat whoever mocked her to a good show today. Point two. The waiter handed the ruby cufflinks to Qin Yunting. Qin Yunting whispered, and the waiter immediately walked to Liang too. Congratulations, Duke Liang. This is a gift from Miss Qin Yunting, the waiter said respectfully. Point two. The whole place was filled with warm applause. Everyone was congratulating Liang. This was a sign of love from a girl, too. Sikongju smiled. Duke, why don't you take it? Those peach blossoms are really flourishing tonight. You just have to sit there. Someone will send you gifts, too. Liang raised his eyebrows. Has anyone worn these cufflinks before, too? Duke, these cufflinks are an antique. The most famous owner of them was the Duke Frank from 100 years ago. The waiter replied. Point two. TSK, sir, I'm a germaphobe. I don't like second-hand things. Not to mention this kind of thing, which I don't know how many hands have touched. 2. Liang's frivolous words made everyone speechless. Was he talking about the cufflinks or a person? 2. Qin Yunting's face instantly paled. Liang was simply scolding her. She turned her head and saw a contemptuous smile on Qin Zixian's lips. Point two. She stood up. Sir, the things you own have gone through countless hands from production to sales. How do you know how many people have touched your clothes? 2. Liang sat lazily. I can disinfect them, but some things are dirty even after being disinfected. He waved a hand dismissively. What else is there? Are we still going to auction or not? 2. The auctioneer heard this and quickly said, Auction. Continue the auction. Let's start the auction for the last piece of jewelry, Sweetheart's Love. The starting price is 100 million. 2. A waiter put a pink diamond necklace on the display shelf. The girls below the stage were instantly shocked. While everyone was looking at the necklace, Qin Yunting took the opportunity to run out of the banquet hall. She was extremely embarrassed. Point two. Gong Machin raised his hand to bid. 110 million. 2. Liang quickly followed. Add 10 million. 2. Gong Machin raised the sign in his hand again. 150 million. 2. 200 million. Liang made another bid. Last time, he didn't manage to get Qin Sheng's kiss. This time, he would not give in to Gong Machin. Point two. Qin Sheng pulled her uncle's arm. She had already said that she didn't want it. Why'd he still bid for her, too? Gong Machin's lips curled. 300 million, too. The entire venue was in an uproar. This price had already exceeded the market value of the pink diamond itself, too. 500 million. Liang made a bid without hesitation. Point two. 800 million. Gong Machin pushed away the girl's hand and continued to bid. Point two. 1 billion. Liang continued to bid. 2.2. The entire banquet hall was silent. Everyone felt that these two men had gone crazy. Point two. No, we don't want it. Qin Sheng pulled Gong Machin's arm and firmly refused to let him raise his hand again. Point two. Gong Machin's doting gaze landed on the little woman who was about to crack with panic. She was really good. She only knew how to save money and didn't know how to spend a. Point two. 1.5 billion, he exclaimed, the word escaping from the corner of his lips, completely ignoring Qin Sheng, whose expression had changed drastically. Point two. 1.8 billion. Liang was furious, completely unwilling to admit defeat. Gong Machin, if you dare, call for 2 billion too. F***CK. If he found the same diamond to make a new one, he wouldn't need to spend so much money. 2. However, in Gong Machin's heart, what he liked most was the name of the necklace and its meaning. The love of a sweetheart, symbolizing Qin Sheng's first love, innocent, tender, and sweet. Point two. He wanted to give her the best things in life, too. 2 billion. Regardless of the little woman's anxious face, he called out the number point two. The corner of Li Ang's lips twitched. 2.5 billion, too. Everyone looked at Gong Machin. Gong Machin's sexy thin lips opened slightly. Before he could say anything, a pair of soft lips covered his mouth. Qin Sheng, who was anxious, sealed her lips with a kiss to stop the man from bidding any more point two. The girl's bold move shocked the entire audience. Everyone knew that Qin Sheng was Gong Machin's niece. The excitement of this news was far more shocking than a necklace selling for 2.5 billion. All eyes were on the uncle and niece point two. Now, no one was competing with Liang anymore. Just as the auctioneer was about to slam the hammer and announce that the necklace was to be auctioned to Liang, a waiter rushed onto the stage point two. The owner of the necklace has called. He said that his necklace is not being auctioned and has already been sold. The person who bought the necklace said that he wanted to give it to his sweetheart. He will compensate us in full for our losses, too. Everyone was stunned. Who had the necklace been sold to, too? Qin Sheng tried her best, but she couldn't break into Gong Machin's mouth. The man's mouth was tightly shut, and his eyes were staring at her point two. Her eyes stared into the man's eyes, and she felt like she was drowning in them. She just wanted to close her eyes and fall into his arms point two. The waiter's words finally let her breathe a sigh of relief. She didn't have to gamble on the man's mouth anymore point two. She turned her head to look at the stage. The sweetheart's love had already been sold. Her eyes were fixed on the necklace, and she took the opportunity to take another look before it was taken away point two. Gong Machin's beating heart finally calmed down. God knows how much willpower he had used to keep his mouth shut and not let the little woman get her way. Looking at the faint disappointment in the girl's eyes, the corners of his lips curled into a charming smile. I'll wait for a few more days, he thought to himself point two. Sold it? It's already sold. And you're still auctioning it here? Are you kidding me? Liang roared angrily. They were treating him as a joke, too. The CEO of the auction house walked into the banquet hall. Duke Liang, I'm really sorry. The owner of Sweetheart's Love just called and said that he has sold the necklace. But he's willing to pay for our losses. If you have any requests, feel free to speak, too. Liang's lips formed into a straight line. Did he care about money? He wanted something. Gong Machin had risked a lot to buy something that Qin Sheng would like. He wanted to give it to Qin Sheng point two. I never lost. Give me the necklace, too. The boss of the auction house was in a difficult position. Duke, you are a magnanimous person. Please forgive me. Who doesn't know that your house is full of jewelry? Don't worry. The next time there's a good item, I will definitely inform you immediately, too. Boss, who did you sell Sweetheart's Love to? Qin Yunting asked curiously point two. It was the most dreamy gift for any girl, and everyone wanted to have it point two. Yeah, who bought it? It must be for his sweetheart, too. A sweetheart? Wow, it's so romantic. I want to meet that man. If someone gave it to me, I'd definitely marry him, too. I want to know who that sweetheart is. I wonder what she looks like. Is she prettier than me, too? The girls in the banquet hall weren't calm, and their faces were full of envy, jealousy, and hatred point two. The boss of the auction house smiled and said, I don't know about that. I heard that it was a mysterious buyer who offered 4 billion, but he refused to reveal his name. He glanced at the guards. Well, hurry up and secure the Sweetheart's Love and send it back on level 1 alert, too. He ordered his bodyguards. The necklace had been auctioned off at a sky-high price. He could not afford to lose it, too. Everyone was shocked. 4 billion. How many office buildings could you buy with that? He'd spent so much money just to make his sweetheart smile point two. Qin Sheng didn't look away until the necklace was put into its box point two. Don't you want to know who bought the necklace? Do you think the girl who receives the necklace will be happy? Gong Machin asked with a mysterious smile on his lips point two. I don't want to know. It has nothing to do with me. As long as my uncle is by my side, I will be happy. Qin Sheng leaned into the man's arms point two. Just because she liked it, it didn't mean that she had to have it. She only wanted what she wanted the most. Gong Machin point two. As the auction ended and the dinner began, everyone left their seats and went to the buffet. Qin Sheng walked to the dining area and served Gong Machin dinner point two. Qin Yunting and Yin Fei took the few pieces of jewelry that they had just bought and walked towards Qin Sheng. Today was really satisfying. Qin Sheng didn't have a single piece of jewelry, too. Hey, cousin, you really made a name for yourself today. How dare you kiss your own uncle? I don't know how the Qin family can tolerate such incestuous behavior, too. Yeah, you're so cheap. You're clearly desperate for a man, especially if you want to climb into your own uncle's bed. Yin Fei immediately added point two. Our Qin family has been made infamous today. I wonder how angry father will be when we get back. Qin Zixian's tone was laced with bitterness point two. Chu Xia pulled Qin Sheng behind her. They're not related by blood, so why can't she? Didn't Annie pursue CEO Gong? Your brother and sister, too. Qin Zixian's face immediately flushed red. Who said I pursued third brother, too? Isn't that right? Does that mean you're only a sister to CEO Gong? Chu Xia said sarcastically to Qin Zixian point two. Did Qin Zixian dare to admit it, too? Qin Zixian just didn't dare to admit it. Admitting it was humiliating. What would she do about marrying Gong Machin, too? You? Do you have the right to speak here? What does it have to do with you, anyway? Who do you think you are, too? Annie Qin, you're meant to be in, but you're acting like a spoilt child. Chu Xia's mouth wasn't forgiving. She was determined not to let Qin Sheng be bullied point two. Qin Sheng held Chu Xia's hand. Let's go get some food. Why waste time talking to children, too? Qin Zixian's beautiful face was livid with anger. She was about to explode in a rage when Qin Sheng and Chu Xia simply walked past her arrogantly point two. She quietly stretched out her leg, right in front of Chu Xia's foot. Chu Xia tripped and fell forward. "Aya!" she screamed, covering her stomach with her hand point two. An arm suddenly hugged Chu Xia's waist, preventing her from falling to the ground point two. "Thank you," Chu Xia said, still in shock. She looked up and saw Sikong Ju point two. She immediately retracted her gratitude and dragged Qin Sheng away point two. "Hey, it's Sikong Ju. Don't you want to talk to him? I think he has feelings for you. Otherwise, he wouldn't have saved you." Qin Sheng said point two. "What do his feelings have to do with me? Even if I was to bring my child to beg for food, I wouldn't be able to reach his level." Chu Xia said angrily point two. Qin Sheng sighed helplessly. Chu Xia's temper was so sharp that she wouldn't tolerate any crap point two. He's still the baby's father. Why don't you think about it, too? Think about what? There are so many beautiful men. Why should I hang myself from a tree? The man you introduced me to wasn't so bad. Chu Xia pointed to another man in the crowd. "Hey, look at that guy. He's so handsome. I like his nose, too. I also like the size of his feet. Did you know that the bigger the man's feet, the bigger his, If we can't see that thing, we can tell his size by looking at the feet." Chu Xia started to teach Qin Sheng again, point two. How would the feet be related to that? Qin Sheng's forehead creased. She looked around the banquet hall and instantly felt that the entire hall was filled with men's feet, point two. Her little face was red with embarrassment. "Chu Xia, you dare to taint me with your perverted thoughts again? Too. Tisk, really? If you don't believe me, look at your uncle's feet. This is science. Qin Sheng, remember my innocent eyes. If I taint you in the future, you must tell others that I was once innocent too. Qin Sheng cringed. She didn't even dare to look at a man's face or his feet, too. Yue quietly walked towards the wine area. Her gaze was fixed on Liang, who was picking up a glass of wine, point two. Liang picked up a glass of red wine and a glass for Sikong Ju. His arm was suddenly touched by someone behind him, point two. "I'm sorry, I didn't notice you there. I didn't spill it on you, did I?" Yue said awkwardly, point two. Liang smiled like a gentleman. "It's okay, I spilled all on the floor, too." Yue seemed to be very embarrassed. She quickly took the empty glass from Liang's hand, took another glass from the table, and handed it to him, point two. "Sorry, have another glass, too." "Thank you." Liang nodded and returned to his seat with the wine, point two. Yue's eyes were fixed on Liang's back. She didn't look away until she saw him pass the glass of wine to Sikong Ju. When she had been holding the glass of wine, she'd taken the opportunity to put the medicine into it, too. "Would it kill you to stop flirting with girls?" Liang handed the wine to Sikong Ju, point two. Sikong Ju was flirting with girls, so Liang had to bring him wine. He was a duke, and he was serving him, too. Sikong Ju took the red wine and smiled like a little cutie. "Duke, can't you see that I'm busy? How could I let down so many girls, too? Liang's lips twitched, and he kicked Sikong-ju's leg. Don't make me sour. I'll hurt you even more than I already have, too. I really don't have the ability to appreciate your kindness. Don't you know that acting cute is popular now? Sikong-ju shook his red wine, looking at the red marks on the glass rim, and smelled the fragrance of the vintage point too. F***CK. You call that acting cute? That's called being horny, Liang retorted. Girls acting cute was called cute, but men acting cute was disgusting, too. Qin Sheng spread rumors about us. Now people think we're in a couple. I sacrificed my sex appeal to clear the Duke's name. Sikong-ju shouted at Liang, too. F***CK. Don't tell me that you slept with a girl for me. Liang's mind was filled with frustration. This guy was right to flirt with girls, too. Sikong-ju didn't continue to shout at Liang. He focused on the red wine, and his forehead gradually darkened point two. In a flash, the corners of his lips curled up slightly, and his gaze landed on Qin Zixian, who was walking past. He casually took Liang's wine glass from his hand and stood up with 2 glasses of red wine point two. Nice to meet you, Miss Qin. May I have the honor to toast you with a glass of wine? 2. Qin Zixian was a little surprised when she saw the wine glass in front of her. Sikong-ju had always been the most mysterious figure in the Duke's circle of aristocrats. His family assets were hundreds of billions, but no one knew what business he was in point two. She took the wine glass and said, Mr. Sikong, you are too kind. It is my honor to be acquainted with you. 2. Although she was not interested in Sikong-ju, she didn't dare to disobey Sikong-ju on account of Duke Liang too. The 2 wine glasses clinked lightly, and then they drank the wine point two. Thank you, Miss Qin. Sikong-ju returned to Liang's side with a smile point two. Liang was confused. Since when did you fall in love with a mature woman? 2. I can't say that I like her. I can only say that she's unlucky. Sikong-ju smiled point two. The image of Chu Xia almost falling to the ground appeared in his mind. At the time, Qin Zixian's legs twitched. Although her movements were very fast, he saw her and what she had done point two. Qin Zixian was unlucky? Unlucky how? Liang was dumbfounded. He even forgot to settle the score with Sikong-ju for stealing his wine point two. 2. After Qin Sheng and Chu Xia finished their meal, Chu Xia was invited by a boy to his seat. Chu Xia generously agreed point two. After looking at Chu Xia, who was being pursued by so many boys, Qin Sheng glanced back at Sikong-ju and cursed in her heart. How could Sikong-ju, who didn't know what was good for him, not be angry when he saw Chu Xia being pursued? Could it be that Sikong-ju didn't have any intention of supporting Chu Xia? 2. She just couldn't make sense of it, couldn't figure it out. She sighed. Maybe it was time for her to find her uncle, so that they could analyze the situation together. As the saying went, 2 heads were always better than 1.2. She carried her plate back to Gong Machen's seat and saw Yi Wei whispering in his ear, her head lowered. Gong Machen was also whispering something to Yi Wei point two. She didn't know what he said, but Yi Wei's eyes were red, and she looked like she was about to cry point two. What the hell? Weren't they a bit too close? They were near enough biting each other's ears, too. Qin Sheng's little universe exploded. You, uncle, I brought you a T-bone steak, smoked salmon, vegetable salad, and red wine. 2. She walked over and placed a plate on the table point two. Yi Wei heard Qin Sheng's voice and immediately distanced herself from Gong Machen. I like the look of this plate. They're all my favorites. Gong Machen praised Qin Sheng. He reached out for a knife and fork to cut the steak, but was stopped by Qin Sheng point two. Qin Sheng sat down and smiled innocently. I'll cut it for you too. She picked up her knife and fork to help the man cut the steak. She brought the beef to the man's lips with her fork. Gong Machen frowned. He didn't dare to use Qin Sheng's cutlery. He was afraid that it would be stained with his saliva. I'll eat it myself, too. No, I want to feed you. Qin Sheng leaned into the man's arms and stubbornly wanted to feed him point two. Gong Machen couldn't eat anymore. He tried to move away from Qin Sheng's fork point two. Qin Sheng wanted to personally feed him all the food. Gong Machen wasn't used to it. He had always been the one taking care of her. The little girl rarely took the initiative to feed him. Also, The little girl's voice was getting more and more coquettish, making him feel goosebumps all over point two. Uncle, are you going to be obedient? Qin Sheng said, looking at Yue provocatively point two. Yue pursed her lips. She was getting more and more uncomfortable. Qin Sheng was clearly doing all this for her to see point two. She picked up her plate and said that she was going to get food, but it was more like she was running away. Gong Machin didn't care what Yue did. His big hand touched the girl who was rubbing against his arms. His eyes were dark. What's wrong? Are you in heat, too? Qin Sheng almost spat out a mouthful of saliva. She pushed the man away and threw the fork onto the man's plate. Who's in heat? Eat it yourself. See if I care, too. She picked up the fork again and ate the grilled lobster meat on her plate point two. Her flirtatious disposition made Gong Machin uncomfortable, and the sudden change in her expression made him even more so point two. What's all this about? He asked. The little girl was turning hostile faster than flipping through a book point two. Qin Sheng rolled her eyes and pointed her fork at the man. What did you say to Yue just now, too? Why did Gong Machin have so much to say to his private doctor, too? Unless they were talking about illness? But then Gong Machin had barely had a cold this past year point two. Looking at the girl's angry little face, Gong Machin couldn't help but laugh. It turned out that he had accidentally opened up a small jar of jealousy point two. You're jealous again? Yue and I were talking about business, too. What business do the two of you have? Qin Sheng asked. In a flash, she grabbed Gong Machin's arm. Hey, are you sick, too? No, I'm not sick. We're talking about investing in a hospital. I want to invest in a hospital and let Yue work in it, Gong Machin said point two. Although that was a lie, they really had been talking about business point two. Yue told him that she drugged Sikong Ju and saw him drink the red wine with the drug in a point two. He was crossed that Yue didn't ask for his permission in advance. But then she'd said that she hadn't because she knew he wouldn't agree to it point two. Sikong Ju looked like a delicate and handsome young man, but Gong Machin was certain that Sikong Ju wasn't as simple as he looked point two. Sikong Ju had been able to hide his identity for so long, so it was clear that he was very shrewd. If Sikong Ju found out that he was poisoned, how could he not suspect the person who gave him the red wine, too? Of course, with Sikong Ju's relationship with Liang, he wouldn't suspect Liang. He would only suspect Yue, who had handed the wine to Liang too. Gong Machin didn't think that Yue was helping him by doing things this way, as doing so could alert Sikong Ju and make him more vigilant. The worst outcome would be that Yue would be found out, and her involvement in the poisoning would cause a scandal point too. And all of this wasn't something Gong Machin could tell Qin Sheng point two. Oh my God, Uncle, look. Qin Sheng looked at the other side of the banquet hall in shock. Gong Machin looked in the direction where Qin Sheng was pointing and saw a boy kneeling on one knee in front of Chu Xia. He had a large bouquet of roses in his hand point too. At that moment, not only did Qin Sheng cry out in shock, everyone in the room cried out. Was this a live courtship, too? Qin Sheng's hand nervously grabbed Gong Machin's hand. Who's that boy? What's his character like, too? Gong Machin smiled as he looked at the little woman who was even more nervous than Chu Xia. Tao Bin, a rich second generation. His father has some money, but he can change girls faster than he can change his clothes, too. Oh no, Chu Xia can't agree to him. Qin Sheng stood up and was about to storm over to Chu Xia, but Gong Machin grabbed her arm point too. He's asking Chu Xia for love, not you. What are you going to say? Chu Xia has her own ideas. Let her make her own decisions, Gong Machin said point two. Qin Sheng and everyone in the banquet hall stared at Chu Xia nervously. They didn't know if she would agree to. Liang whistled. Sikong Ju, do you really not mind if your woman marries another man? Too. I've slept with many girls. Why do you care so much, anyway? She's a tough girl and dirty. She's not my type. Stop bothering me, Sikong Ju said to Liang, but his eyes were fixed on Chu Xia point two. Chu Xia, if you don't agree with me, I won't get up. Tao Bin said point two. Chu Xia pursed her lips. She really didn't understand. How could he ask for her love like that? It was so fast, too. She felt drunk. The people who wanted to get married despised her, jealous of how she could get a boy to bow at her feet, just like that point too. She could feel the focus on her. She braced herself and stood up, taking the man's flowers. Thank you. The flowers are very beautiful, too. Her heart trembled. This was the first time she had received a rose. The funny thing was, it wasn't what she had expected. Point two. Taobin stood up and hugged Chu Xia. No flower is as beautiful as you, too. The sweet words of the two of them stimulated all the girls in the room. There was simply no justice. They were wooed the moment they saw each other. Love at first sight sprang to mind in many people's minds. Point two. Qin Sheng was a little depressed. This Tao Bin didn't seem reliable at all. She planned to remind Chu Xia after the banquet was over. She stood up and went to the bathroom. Point two. She didn't know whether it was because she'd eaten too much papaya when she first came, or because she had drunk too many cold drinks just now, but her stomach kept hurting. She sat on the toilet and didn't breathe. Point two. Qin Sheng heard the sound of a few women coming into the bathroom. Point two. Yugting, you really have the ability to be defeated by the Qin family? The woman paused for a moment, as if she realized that she had said something wrong. I mean, you can live such a luxurious life now, and you started your own business, too. Yeah, so can Yin Fei. Yin Fei is also amazing now. She is the boss of the seduction night. Tell them how much you paid for the nightclub from the original boss, too. Yeah, tell us about it. How'd you guys get rich, too? The girls envied Yin Fei and Qin Yunting's jewelry, like jealous birds. Point two. Qin Yunting looked at the small celebrities surrounding her with contempt. It's easy to get rich. You all come tomorrow. Come to the seduction nightclub, and I'll introduce you to a few big bosses, too. Haven't you heard? Men conquer the world. Women conquer men. Do you understand, too? The small celebrities understood what Qin Yunting meant. After all, celebrities love their youth and riches. If they didn't take advantage of the current market to make money, will they grow old gracelessly and make no money, too? Then I'll have to trouble Miss Yunting. Thank you for inviting me. You must find us a few rich people. One of the celebrities said. Point two. The guests who come to our charm nights are all rich people. However, how much you can earn from them all depends on whether you can make those big bosses comfortable. Yin Fei added. Point two. Understood. Of course we understand. One of the celebrities said quickly. Point two. Qin Sheng was sitting in the cubicle, listening to the voices outside. She heard the voices of the celebrities loud and clear. Point two. F***CK. They were a group of young girls. How could they do such a thing? Lower themselves in such a way. Point two. Her stomach no longer hurt. She cleaned herself up and came out of the cubicle. When she walked out of the cubicle, she gave the girls a big fright. They were so embarrassed that they didn't dare to look at Qin Sheng. Point two. We were just joking. Don't you think it's funny? One of the celebrities quickly said, trying to change her words. Point two. Yes, we were just joking, too. The small celebrity's forehead was covered in cold sweat. If their reputation was ruined, they wouldn't be able to survive, too. Qin Sheng's lips curved. What kind of joke is this? So dirty, so cold. Were you clowns sent by monkeys, too? Yeah, it's not funny at all. You're right. One of the small celebrities pulled her companion back, wanting to escape this place as soon as possible. Point two. Qin Yunting rolled her eyes. Qin Sheng, why are you pretending to be innocent? Who kissed their uncle just now? If a niece can climb into their uncle's bed, the most shameless person here is you, too. After being reminded by Qin Yunting, the small celebrities no longer felt guilty. Point two. Yeah, I really didn't expect that a niece would dare to kiss her uncle. Once this news is exposed, I think the Qin family will kick out soon, said one of the small celebrities smugly. Point two. She had already made up her mind. She secretly took a photo of Qin Sheng kissing Gong Machin and sent it to the reporters. She believed that Qin Sheng would be disgraced. Point two. Since Qin Sheng dared to call them dirty, they would let her see who was dirty, too. Yeah, some people are so shameless. They pretend to be innocent, but they do things that are shameful. Yin Fei said sarcastically. Point two. Yeah, what are you pretending for? We're not as dirty as you. We're clean in comparison, too. The small celebrities finally vented their anger. Qin Sheng's face turned red and then white. Gong Machin is not my biological uncle, too. If he wasn't my biological uncle, he would still my uncle. TSK, your taste is so shameful. Do you even call him uncle in bed? Yin Fei said craftily. She hated Qin Sheng to death. Point 2. If he's not my biological uncle, then he's not my uncle by blood. Qin Sheng roared angrily. Point 2. Well, we'd better release the news and let everyone judge. Guess what people will say? Will they call her a slut? Qin Yunting said. Point 2. I think she's a slut. Yin Fei said. Point 2. I have a photo here. Do you want it? One of the small celebrities said. Point 2. Yes, give it to me quickly. I'll send it to the news agency. Yin Fei quickly asked. Point 2. How dare you? Give me your phone. Qin Sheng reached out to grab the phone in Yin Fei's hand. Point 2. Qin Yunting led the celebrities to form a human wall to stop Qin Sheng. Point 2. Let's see how Grandpa will deal with you tomorrow. I want to see you driven out of the Qin family, too. Qin Sheng was really anxious. She raised her hand to push Qin Yunting, but was pushed to the ground by one of the celebrities. Point 2. One of the celebrities grabbed Qin Sheng's hand and said, My godfather is the boss of the news agency. Just wait for your reputation to be ruined. 2. Qin Sheng pulled her arm back, pain coursing through her. Point 2. Suddenly, the door of the female toilets was pushed open and a man barged in. 2. Stop. The man lifted his leg and kicked away the little celebrity who had grabbed Qin Sheng. He lifted Qin Sheng up from the ground. Point 2. He was secretly glad that he had come to the washroom. When he passed by the female washroom's door, he heard some movement inside. It was just a faint sound, and he thought that it was Qin Sheng. In the spirit of curiosity, he pushed the door open and barged into the washroom. Point 2. Hasiki, hurry up and snatch the phone in their hands. Qin Sheng said anxiously. Point 2. Thank God Hasiki had actually come into the female washroom. Point 2. Hasiki didn't go over to snatch the phone, but locked the door of the washroom. He looked at the women in front of him coldly. Hand over the phone. Otherwise, none of you will be able to leave. 2. The corner of Yin Fei's lips twitched. Hasiki, are you a fool? She kissed Gongmachin just now. You're doing this for Qin Sheng's sake? You're already treading on thin ice, and you're still shamelessly helping her, too. Hasiki's face darkened. Qin Sheng never promised me to be my girlfriend. I'm the one who likes her. It's her right to choose who she likes, too. But Gongmachin is her uncle, and she's a slut who seduced her own uncle. Aren't you disgusted by such a dirty woman? Yin Fei said angrily. Point 2. What made Yin Fei most angry was Hasiki's kindness to Qin Sheng. She had been chasing after Hasiki for so long, but he still couldn't see her, too. In the end, her difficulties were worse than Qin Sheng's. Whether it was her reputation or figure, she felt that she was much better than Qin Sheng, too. The corner of Hasiki's lips twitched, and he suddenly slapped Yin Fei's face. Who the F*** CK did you dare to call dirty? Don't you dare say it again, too. Yin Fei's head was sent to one side by Hasiki's slap, and the hair that was tied up at the back of her head fell down. Point 2. She covered her face with her hand. You dare to hit me? Hasiki, you're blind. You don't even know who really loves you. 2. Even if I don't have anyone to love me, I won't ask dirty women to love me. Yin Fei, how dirty are you? How dare you call others dirty? It's the same for all of you. How many men have you slept with? Do you want me to continue? Hasiki said. He raised his hand to the women. Give me your phone, or I'll punish you one by one, too. Qin Yunting's face was pale. She bit her bottom lip. Hasiki's words were like knives stabbing in her heart. She was indeed dirty, too. The small celebrity that had taken the photo reacted quickly and took out her phone. Can I delete it myself? This phone is quite expensive, too. Hasiki ignored the women. He took the phone, threw it into the basin, and turned on the tap, filling it with water. Point 2. Looking at the phone that was soaked in water, the small celebrities felt their hearts ache and wanted to cry, too. Qin Sheng, did they hit you just now? Hasiki asked. Point 2. They pushed me down, Qin Sheng said. Point 2. Hasiki rolled her eyes. Didn't you learn Taekwondo, too? Huh? You can fight just by learning Taekwondo? Taekwondo is all about standing up and kicking. There are so many of them. How am I supposed to fight them all? Qin Sheng asked. In order to protect herself, Gongmachin had asked her to take Taekwondo classes since she was young. She ended up learning it, but she rarely got to use it, so thought she might be a little rusty. Point 2. Go beat them up. Hasiki raised his finger and pointed at the girls. Point 2. The few girls quickly covered their faces. Don't beat us up. Qin Yunting asked us to do it. If you want to settle the score, look at her, too. Hasiki snorted coldly. If it's not Qin Sheng who beats you, then it'll be me. You only have these two choices. After Qin Sheng has beaten you, you can leave. 2. The small celebrities looked at each other and made their choice. It would be much better to be beaten by Qin Sheng. They'd recover from it quicker. But if it was Hasiki, they didn't want to think about it, so they lined up and walked to Qin Sheng. Point 2. Qin Sheng saw that Hasiki was really angry. She thought that Hasiki wouldn't forgive her if she didn't hit these girls. She raised her hand and slapped the faces of the small celebrities. Point 2. She slapped the first, moving from left to right. When she hit the last small celebrity, her palm hurt. Point 2. The small celebrity ran away as if she was running for her life. Qin Yunting and Yin Fei were still there. Qin Yunting clenched her fists. Should I hand over my phone and slap myself? Would that suit you, too? Her eyes were filled with tears. Her ex-fiancé was now backing another girl and allowing her to slap her. Point 2. Yes, Hasiki said. Point 2. Qin Yunting threw her phone into the basin and raised her hand to slap herself. The crisp sound of the slap echoed through the bathroom. She lowered her head and ran out of the door. Yin Fei also learned to throw her phone and slap herself once before running out. Point 2. Qin Sheng let out a sigh of relief. It was better that they'd slapped themselves. She didn't want to do things to the extreme. After all, they were still in the same class. Point 2. Thank you. It would have been bad if those photos were exposed, too. Hasiki pursed his lips. Do you really like your uncle? When Qin Yunting talked about you and your uncle in the past, was it true or was she slandering you? 2. I love Gong Machin, and he loves me too. We are truly in love. It's true, but it's not like what Qin Yunting said. Qin Sheng explained. Point 2. Okay, I got it. I know I can't compete with President Gong, but I will work hard to make myself outstanding. I will compete with President Gong on a fair basis. Hasiki said. Point 2. Qin Sheng stared blankly at the smiling boy. She was so embarrassed that she didn't know how to answer him. Point 2. Don't tell me you won't even give me a chance to compete on a fair basis? Hasiki asked. Point 2. No, Qin Sheng replied. I need to leave now. Uncle is looking for me, too. After saying that, she turned around and ran. She couldn't bear to hurt Hasiki's feelings. Point 2. Gong Machin, who was sitting in his seat, looked at the girl who ran back and touched her forehead with his big hand. Why are you running again, too? It's nothing. Running is healthy, Qin Sheng said with a smile. Point 2. Gong Machin raised his hand to hold Qin Sheng's hand, but he found that the girl's palm was red. What happened, too? Nothing much, but... Qin Sheng repeated what happened just now. Point 2. Gong Machin's eyebrows sank. So stupid. Couldn't you have hit them with a stick or asked Niefeng to hit them, too? He rubbed the girl's palm, feeling sorry for her. It was red. How painful would it be for his girl? 2. Qin Sheng hadn't had the time to react. Gong Machin wanted her to hit them with a stick? How could she have done that? 2. Before she could speak, Gong Machin whispered a few words to Niefeng, who was behind him. Niefeng nodded and left. Uncle, what did you ask Niefeng to do? Qin Sheng asked. Point 2. Don't you worry, little niece. Does your hand still hurt? Gong Machin asked. Point 2. It doesn't hurt anymore, Qin Sheng replied. Then she noticed that the small celebrities had been taken away too. She saw Niefeng say a few words to the bosses, and then the bosses went to look for the small celebrities, walking to the lounge. Point 2. What were they going to do? Why did they go to the lounge, too? Suddenly, Qin Sheng thought of something important, too. Little uncle, will the photos be exposed? Qin Sheng thought of this crucial question. Point 2. Gong Machin pinched Qin Sheng's chin. You're afraid that people will know, and you still dare to kiss me in public, too. Qin Sheng's little face was red with embarrassment. It's not that I don't want people to know. I'm just afraid that it will affect you badly, too. She wasn't afraid of her reputation. As long as she could be with her uncle, she would do whatever it took. However, she did not want Gong Machin to receive any negative effects from this. Point 2. Gong Machin's long arms pulled the girl into his embrace. Don't worry. No news media will dare to publish our news, too. Qin Sheng looked up at her uncle. How imposing was he? Even the media didn't dare to publish bad news about him, too. She didn't know if the internet police were on full alert. If someone uploaded photos of them kissing to the internet, whether it was QQ, WeChat, or other websites, they would be deleted and their accounts would be blocked. Point two. That was why Gong Machin didn't bother to search their phones and force them to delete the photos. Point two. Because even if there were photos, they couldn't be sent out. Moreover, he had someone had a virus. If someone sent such photos, the virus would invade the phone and destroy all the memory in the system. Point two. At that moment, a group of reporters stormed into the banquet hall and rushed into the lounge. Point two. The door of the lounge opened and a woman's scream rushed out. The lights of cameras kept flashing, the reporters taking pictures of the scene inside. Point two. Everyone in the banquet hall ran over to watch the show. In an instant, cries of shock ruptured from the crowd. Point two. Oh my God, too. Damn, this is too scandalous, too. Look, it's that group of young girls. They actually did such a thing, too. The sounds of discussion bubbled around the hall. Qin Sheng pulled Gong Machin into the crowd, too curious about what was going on inside the lounge. Point two. When the crowd saw Gong Machin walking over, they automatically made way for him. Qin Sheng easily walked to the front, and Chu Xia followed. Point two. The girls in the room all used their hands to cover their faces. They were simply tarnished in everyone's eyes, too. The men in the lounge were fine. They were still chatting and laughing. They were all single and were also small CEOs. Point two. Have you filmed enough? What's there to film with us men? One of the CEOs said. Point two. The women were squeezed onto the sofa, hugging each other and crying loudly. Point two. Their careers as celebrities had been ruined. They no longer walked the path as innocent young girls. Point two. Gong Machin gave a look to a reporter. The reporter immediately went in with his camera. Point two. Gong Machin lowered his head and looked at the little woman beside him. Have you seen enough? Let's go too. He covered Qin Sheng's eyes with his hand and led her out of the crowd. Qin Sheng pried the man's hand away. Let me see what the girls are afraid of. Uncle, did you call the reporters here? Too. Remember, in the future, whoever bullies you, you have to take revenge like this. Don't let anyone bully you in the slightest. Gong Machin said. Point two. Qin Sheng nodded her little head. The man was like a haven for her to shelter in from the wind. He would protect her from everything. Point two. She got up on her tiptoes and kissed the man on the cheek. I'll remember this. In the future, I won't let anyone bully me. If someone bullies me, I'll make sure to take revenge, too. She gestured in the air. Chu Xia, who was following behind, shouted, Qin Sheng, quick, look at your phone. The news has been synchronized, and the names of those small celebrities have been posted. There are even videos of them. Now, they'll have to quit the entertainment industry, too. She pulled Qin Sheng over. Quick, tell me, what did they do to provoke you, too? Qin Sheng turned her head to look at Chu Xia. Then she looked at her phone and told her everything. Point two. She mumbled softly, is the punishment too ruthless? They didn't do anything other than push me down and scold me, too. Chu Xia glared at Qin Sheng. Look at how soft-hearted you are. If they weren't punished like this, they would dare to bully you again. Useless. Can you be more magnanimous, too? Qin Sheng forced a smile. She knew she could be soft-hearted. She never held a grudge and wouldn't do things to the extreme. Point two. I suppose, too. All right, stop talking. Next thing you'll be putting on a long robe and becoming a nun. You'll put on a halo and ascend to the heavens. Bad people won't change because good people like you are too tolerant. If it were me, I would never forgive them. If you hurt me once, I will remember it for the rest of my life, too. Qin Sheng pursed her lips. Chu Xia had such a clear-cut temper. She believed that Chu Xia would definitely do what she said. Just then, she spotted Sikong Ju, who was watching the commotion in the crowd. Point two. She was certain that if one day Sikong Ju regretted trying to push Chu Xia away, he would definitely die a miserable death. Point two. She mourned for him for a minute. Point two. Okay, let's not talk about me anymore. How are things with you and Tao Bin? Are you really going to accept him, too? Accept what? I wanted to slander him and scare him away. I don't know what he was thinking. Maybe he didn't take his medicine. The more I slander him, the more he seems to like me. He even tried to court me, too. Tao Bin had said he'd never seen such a straightforward girl like Chu Xia and insisted on wooing her, too. Qin Sheng's heart shot into her stomach when she remembered her uncle's words. I wanted to remind you that his character and reputation aren't that good. If you accept his rose, how are you going to deal with that, too? Tao Bin is an expert at flirting. He's used to using shameless tactics. If I don't agree to his proposal and ignore his words, everyone will only talk about me. How can I not accept? But I didn't say that if I accept, I can't break up with him. Tomorrow, I'll kick him to the curb when no one is around. Chu Xia said point two. She was pregnant, broke, and had to deal with the college entrance examination. She was also misunderstood by others, who thought she was trying to extort money from men. She was already in a mess, and this Tao Bin still wanted to stir things up. He really deserved to be taught a lesson, too. Gong Machin looked at the little woman sitting beside him, whispering to her best friend. His lips curled into a warm smile. He liked to watch her like this point, too. The small CEOs who'd played with the women walked out and nodded at Gong Machin. Then, they left respectfully, holding contracts in their hands, point two. What they'd done had been worth it, because they'd been able to exchange project contracts between their company and the Gong Group. A price gladly paid, too. Just then, he saw Qin Yunting and Yin Fei chatting with a few bosses. His brows creased into a frown. Those bosses were the Qin Group's biggest customers, too. He raised his hand and called Nie Feng over. Just as he was about to give his orders, he heard a woman scream. Help! Qin Zixian is going to die, too. Qin Sheng was shocked. She followed Chu Xia and was about to run over to take a look when Gong Machin pulled her back, point two. Follow behind me, too. This girl couldn't stop him from worrying. Was she afraid, too? Qin Sheng was shouted at by Gong Machin and obediently followed behind him. She took small steps and walked over to take a look at what was going on, point two. The crowd formed a circle and looked at Qin Zixian, who was convulsing on the ground. The beautiful Qin Zixian probably never thought that she would fall to the ground and start convulsing for everyone to see, too. Everyone only watched her. No one dared to go forward to help Qin Zixian, point two. Stand still. Gong Machin instructed Qin Sheng, point two. He walked over to check on Qin Zixian's condition. Her entire body was stiff, and her eyes were wide open. Her vision was also glazed, as if she was blind, point two. Third brother. Third brother. She breathed in and out rapidly. Her chest rose and fell violently, but she seemed to be unable to breathe, point two. I'm here, Gong Machin replied. Nie Feng. Carry Qin Zixian to the hospital, too. Third brother. Will I die? Too. Qin Zixian shouted the last sentence. Her vision was dark, and she couldn't breathe. She felt like she was suffocating. She really felt like she was going to suffocate. She wanted to reach out and rub her throat. Her limbs were numb, and she couldn't control them at all, point two. No. Nie Feng, hurry up. Gong Machin, order, point two. Nie Feng leaned forward and was about to carry Qin Zixian, but he was stopped by Sikong Ju, who'd stepped out of the crowd, point two. I think Qin Zixian will die if she's taken to the hospital. Isn't there a doctor here? Dr. Yi, why don't you come over and treat Qin Zixian? Sikong Ju looked at Yi Wei coldly, point two. Qin Sheng looked at Sikong Ju in surprise. His coldness made her feel like she was looking at a stranger, point two. She had never seen Sikong Ju like this before. His eyes were like the emerald eyes on the skull ring on his finger, cold and dark, point two. Sikong Ju's words instantly resonated with everyone. If she's a doctor, why doesn't she come over and take a look, too? Yeah, she's a doctor, and she doesn't even have the heart to save lives, too. Many people were discussing Yi Wei's lack of empathy, point two. Yi Wei braced herself and walked over. Let me take a look at her. I'll determine if she's really dying, too. Cold sweat broke out on her forehead as she looked at Gong Machin, point two. She was flustered. Maybe Gong Machin was right when he'd said that he didn't want to drug anyone, too. This should have happened to Sikong Ju, but it turned out Qin Zixian was the one who was affected, too. She clearly saw Sikong Ju drink the wine in his right hand. Could it be that he had secretly exchanged his cup of wine when he snatched Liang's wine? 2. Her heart turned cold. If that was the case, it could only mean that Sikong Ju had sensed that there was something wrong with the wine. She had used a purified medicine. It was colorless and tasteless. Logically, she shouldn't have been discovered, too. Her brain was about to explode. How could Sikong Ju find out about it so easily? If Ju really found out about it, he would alert the enemy. And then it would be even harder to get Gong Machin the antidote. Point 2. Yi Wei checked Qin Zixian's condition. She was the daughter of Gong Machin's adoptive father. She couldn't let Qin Zixian die. However, if she took out the antidote, how was she going to explain why she brought the antidote with her, too? Her original plan was to poison Ju. If he took the antidote himself, it would prove that he was His Highness Yu. She would have appeared when he was about to take the antidote and threatened him by exposing his identity, asking him to hand over Gong Machin's antidote. Point 2. If he couldn't detoxify himself, it would prove that her guess was wrong. But then she would have secretly given him the antidote. Point 2. She had been following Ju secretly. Because her antidote was added with interferon, it would delay the efficacy of the medicine. Therefore, according to her judgment, Ju should have symptoms of poisoning by now. However, everything about her plan had changed now. Point 2. Qin Zixian was only breathing weakly. Her face was blue from suffocation. Point 2. Dr. Yi, what's her condition? Gong Machin asked. Point 2. Yi Wei was confused. She had told Gong Machin before, why did he still ask? 2. However, she wisely chose to do as the man asked. After all, there must be a reason for him to ask twice. Point 2. I think it's aconitum poisoning, possibly from a purified aconitum alkaloid. When this poison is ingested in small amounts, it can cause symptoms of poisoning. It can kill a person in 10 minutes, too. What kind of antidote do you need? Gong Machin continued to ask. Point 2. I need a amiodarone. I also need dopamine and propofol. I must have a amiodarone now. Yi Wei said. Point 2. What a coincidence. I happen to have a amiodarone here. I bought it to treat my mother's heart disease. Niefeng immediately said. Point 2. Everyone sighed. A coincidence saved a life. Yi Wei took a amiodarone and some of her specially made antidote powder. She purified aconitum and added some things to it. However, amiodarone alone wasn't enough, too. She injected it into one of Qin Zixian's vein. Qin Zixian's condition improved in moments. Point 2. The doctor who was called came with an ambulance. The doctor and nurse carried the stretcher and ran into the banquet hall. Point 2. Where's the patient? The doctor asked. Point 2. Here. She has aconitine poisoning. She's been injected with a amiodarone. Yi Wei explained the situation to the doctor. Point 2. Okay, we understand. The doctor and nurse carried Qin Zixian out of the banquet hall. Point 2. Just when Yi Wei breathed a sigh of relief and was about to leave, Liang, who had been silent all this time, spoke. Point 2. President Gong, don't you find it strange? Why was your sister poisoned by aconitine? He said evilly. Point 2. Gong Machin smiled. Thank you for reminding me. I'll look into it, too. No need to thank me. I've already called the police for you. Someone poisoned Miss Qin at the banquet. I've been staying at the Qin residence. I've called the police to repay the Qin family for taking care of me. Liang said. Point 2. Gong Machin's eyes narrowed. The Duke is really grateful, too. It's not that I'm grateful. I just don't want anyone to get away with it. Liang smirked. Point 2. Just as the two men were talking, the police arrived. Point 2. Gong Machin pulled Qin Sheng to his side and looked at the police who walked in. President Gong, I'm sorry. We received a report that someone poisoned Miss Qin Zixian during the banquet. The police said respectfully. Point 2. Gong Machin raised his hand. Go ahead, Sergeant 2. Thank you, President Gong. Search them one by one. Sergeant Ma ordered his men. Point 2. Uncle, do you know Sergeant Ma? Qin Sheng raised her head and asked. Point 2. Yes, I've met him. Don't be afraid. Nothing will happen, Gong Machin said as he pulled the girl into his arms. Point 2. Qin Sheng wasn't afraid at all. She curiously poked her head out of the man's arms and looked at the searching police officers. Point 2. The police officers found Yi Wei. Yi Wei opened her bag and asked the police officers to look through it. Point 2. Reporting to Superintendent Ma, we found something here. We found some pills, too. Yi Wei's face turned pale as if she had seen a ghost. Gong Machin had told her to throw the things away to prevent Ju from realizing that it was her. He said that it would be harmful to her, so she'd flush the pills down the toilet. Point 2. But how had the medicine appeared in her purse again? It was as if a ghost was playing tricks on her. Everyone was surprised. They had actually found the medicine in Yi Wei's bag. It was obvious who had drugged Qin Zixian. It was Dr. Yi, too. It can't be. She saved Miss Qin, too. Didn't you see that it was Dr. Yi that Sikong had called for? If it wasn't for Mr. Sikong asking Dr. Yi to treat Miss Qin, would she have cared, too? Many people were chatting amongst themselves. Point two. No, this medicine isn't mine. Yiwei's muddled brain finally caught some sense. Point two. Her mind was clear. She was sure she'd thrown the medicine away. What the police had found can't have been hers. Point two. Superintendent Ma walked over. I'm sorry, Dr. Yi. Although you said the medicine isn't yours, it was found in your purse. Please come back with us to assist in the investigation. 2. Superintendent Ma was neither cold nor warm, and he was completely expressionless. Point 2. No, it's not my medicine. Yiwei was so anxious that she was about to cry. Point 2. She turned to look at Gong Machin for help. She regretted not consulting him earlier. She should have spoke to him before poisoning the wine, too. Oh my, Dr. Yi, I really didn't expect you to be like this. Why did you poison Qin Zixian? Could it be that you were afraid that she would snatch CEO Gong away? The Qin family's old madam was interested in marrying her daughter to CEO Gong, but it hasn't been decided yet. You don't have to be so anxious, right? Liang said in a bewitching manner. Point 2. I really didn't realize that Dr. Ye's favorite person is CEO Gong. Sikong Ju added. Point 2. The two of them chimed in and successfully attracted everyone's attention. Yi Wei poisoned Qin Zixian in order to compete for Gong Machin. It was clear now. Point 2. The discussion in the banquet hall became louder. More importantly, the reporters who were filming the group of young girls and the bosses in the lounge hadn't left yet. They aimed their cameras at Yi Wei and Gong Machin. Point 2. This news was more explosive than a small celebrity serving a boss. It turned out that the Qin family intended to betroth their daughter to Gong Machin, and one of Gong Machin's women was so jealous that she poisoned Qin Zixian. 2. Qin Sheng glared at Liang. Did this man think that the matter wasn't big enough? 2. Instantly, Liang glared back at her. The evil man's fingers were making gestures at her. Point 2. Sergeant Ma understood and realized that Dr. Yi and Gong Machin had a relationship. He walked to Gong Machin's side and said respectfully, President Gong, you see that we have found the medicine. We must bring Missy back to the police station to assist in the investigation. Please help us, too. Gong Machin said coldly. This is our obligation. He turned to Yi Wei and nodded slightly. Point 2. Yi Wei understood what the man meant. She obediently followed the police out of the banquet hall. She couldn't control her head and looked back. She remembered the time when someone framed Qin Sheng. The embassy people went to the Qin family to capture Qin Sheng, but they didn't take Qin Sheng away. Point 2. She had a bitter smile on her lips. Was this the difference between her and Qin Sheng in his heart? Qin Sheng looked at Yi Wei's back and raised her hand to pull Gong Machin's arm. She asked in a low voice, Did Dr. Yi poison Aunt, too? No, don't talk nonsense. I'll ask Nie Feng to send you home. I still have something to deal with, Gong Machin said. Point 2. Qin Sheng nodded her head and followed Nie Feng. She pulled Chu Xiao along and prepared to send her friend home. Point 2. In the corridor, she saw Liang and Sikong Ju walking in front of them. She ran over to them. Point 2. Did you put the medicine in Dr. Ye's bag, too? From the beginning to the end, it had been these two men who'd hinted that Dr. Yi was the one who harmed Qin Zixian. Qin Sheng wasn't stupid. If someone wanted to harm Yi Wei, it must be these two people. Point 2. Liang stopped and looked at the little woman. Stupid girl. Why would I need to frame Yi Wei? Am I jealous of your aunt? I don't think so, too. Qin Sheng's gaze narrowed. Who knows? You might be jealous, too. The corner of Liang's lips twitched. Damn it, the stupid girl always tried to embarrass him. Why would he be jealous, too? Qin Sheng, if I don't lay you on the bed, you won't know what my thing can do, too. What can that little lipstick of yours do? Who knows, you might have taken a fancy to my uncle. My uncle said that the medicine wasn't Dr. Ye's, so it's not. It must have been made by you. Qin Sheng snapped. Point 2. Sikong Ju was about to burst into laughter. Duke Liang, so you just got a little lipstick. No wonder you can't handle the little girl, too. Get lost. You're the one with a lipstick. Liang kicked Sikong Ju's leg, his expression tightening into a scowl. Point 2. Last time, he lied about having sex with Qin Sheng and Sikong-ju had obviously found out that he was lying too. Who had sex with him? I didn't. Liang, you're so shameless. Qin Sheng glared at the man. Point two. Liang grabbed Qin Sheng's arm. Why are you so angry? Is it because I didn't really want you? Don't be anxious. Do you want it in the car or back at the villa? If you want to have sex 7 times a night or once a night, I can satisfy you too. Qin Sheng's face turned pale. I don't want you. You're shameless and even lied about me. I love my uncle. I don't want anyone else but him, too. Liang's face darkened. If that's the case, then cut the crap. Can't you see that Yi Wei is very interested in Gong Machin? Are you an idiot? Or are you stupid? Why are you still trying to help Yi Wei, too? After saying that, he turned around and walked out of the hotel. Sikong-ju followed him out. Point two. Qin Sheng glared at the man as he left. They always argued, no matter what, and they always left each other on bad terms. It wasn't her fault that he had a small lipstick, too. However, she understood Li Ang's words. Yi Wei was interested in Gong Machin, so it was best for her if Yi Wei went to jail. Point two. Chu Xia moved closer to Qin Sheng. Is the Duke helping you deal with Yi Wei? Too. As if. I would never accept his help. Come on, let's go home. Qin Sheng guided Chu Xia out of the hotel. Point two. Two. At the police station, Gong Machin was sitting in Superintendent Ma's office. Superintendent Ma came in with a pile of test results. President Gong, the drug has been tested. It's aconitum, and the drug that Qin Zixian was poisoned with is also aconitum. 2. He was scared to say that Yi Wei was the one who poisoned Qin Zixian. After all, Yi Wei was Gong Machin's rumored girlfriend. Whether it was true or not, Gong Machin came here for this woman. He felt that even if she wasn't his girlfriend, the relationship between the two of them wasn't ordinary. Point two. Gong Machin nodded. I want to see Yi Wei, too. Yes, I'll bring Yi Wei here right away. Sergeant Ma hurriedly walked out of the office and went to bring her over personally. Point two. Mu Feng walked in. President, we found Chung Yi's password. 2. What is it? Gong Machin asked. Point two. It's the login password of a new QQ account that he applied for. We found a photo of a man wearing a silver mask in the mailbox of that QQ account. Take a look. Nie Feng opened his phone and showed the photo to Gong Machin. Point two. The photo was clearly taken through a glass window on the door of a stairwell. The angle of the photo was bad, and the image wasn't clear. Only 2 people could be vaguely seen standing on the stairs, a man and a woman. Point two. However, even though the man's face was not clearly photographed, it was still eye-catching because of the silver mask on his face. Point two. And the shape of the woman was quite distinct. Point two. The man was holding a few blue folders, and the woman was reaching out to take them. It was obvious that Chung Yi had gone to the place where Lin Ying had arranged to meet him earlier and had accidentally captured the scene of Lin Ying and the man in the mask. Point two. Gong Machin's eyes focused on the man in the silver mask, his eyes as cold as the deepest sea. Point two. A moment later, he nodded. He signaled Nie Feng to turn off his phone. President, it seems that this man in the silver mask is the one who wanted to harm Miss Qin. But how did he know that Chung Yi had this photo? Nie Feng said. Point two. Other than Chung Yi saying it himself, there is no other possibility. He realized what he had taken and wanted to find out how much evidence he had on that man. Therefore, he got greedy and wanted to use the photo to blackmail him. Point two. He knew that Yin Fei and Qin Yunting were in cahoots with this man, so he found one of them. He probably didn't expect that he would lose his life because of this photo. Gong Machin analyzed the cause and effect of the whole incident. Point two. I see. He didn't get the money, but he had his life taken away. I will send more people to keep an eye on Qin Yunting and Yin Fei. I will definitely find out where this man in the silver mask lives. Nie Feng said. Point two. Gong Machin nodded. Do it, too. Although he knew that person wouldn't appear next to Yin Fei or Qin Yunting again, he still asked Nie Feng to send more people. Even if it was a 1 in 10,000 chance, he would still try. Nie Feng followed the order and walked out of the office. Sergeant Ma happened to walk in with Yi Wei after Nie Feng left. Point two. President Gong. Miss Yi is here, Sergeant Ma said. Point two. I'll talk to her alone. Gong Machin raised his hand to tell Sergeant Ma to go. Point two. This is against the rules, Sergeant Ma said. Then he saw the man's cold eyes and immediately changed his words. But President Gong's request is within the rules. I'll go out, and you guys can talk, too. Sergeant Ma quickly walked out of the office. Gong Machin's eyes were too cold, and he was so scared that he didn't dare to say a word. Point two. Yue watched Sergeant Ma walk out. Only then did she relax and fall onto the sofa. Point two. I really got rid of that medicine. I flushed it down the toilet. You have to believe me. She looked at the man helplessly. Point two. I believe you. This time, it was His Highness you who deliberately messed with you. That's why he put the medicine in your bag. Gong Machin said. Point two. He's able to do such things. Yue was surprised. Point two. Now she believed what her contact had said was true. Every person who approached His Highness you to discover his identity died miserably in the end. Point two. He doesn't have such a great ability, but Liang does. Think about it. Who approached you in the banquet hall? Gong Machin asked. Point two. Yue thought carefully. No, I've been secretly following His Highness you, but no one approached me. Not that I recall. 2. Qin Zixian's test came back. It's aconite poisoning, and the medicine in your purse was also aconite. If you ask me, that's suspicious enough, Gong Machin said. Point two. Yue suddenly thought of something. There is some special ingredients in the aconitum that I purified. It wasn't pure aconitum. I added aconite extract. The aconitum that I purified had strong medicinal strength, but my mixture had a different composition to the one that was put in my bag. I'm sure of it. If Qin Zixian had been poisoned with that, she wouldn't have been poisoned for so long. 2. The aconitum that had been planted in her bag was harmful to her. Point two. I'll get Nye Feng to investigate. You stay here for a few days. This is the safest place for you, Gong Machin said. Point two. Yue nodded. Gong Machin called Superintendent Ma to come and take Yue away. Point two. He couldn't tell Superintendent Ma that there were no aconite in the medicine. He could only get Nye Feng to inform the hospital to conduct a more detailed examination. Point two. When Gong Machin arrived at the hospital, the sound of a woman crying could be heard from the ward. He strode into the ward. When He saw that Gong Machin had arrived, she cried even harder. Machin, look at how that Yue has harmed your sister. That Yue must die, too. Qin Zixian pulled He-Fun's hand. Her eyes were pitiful. Mom, forget it. At least she never lost her conscience and saved me. 2. He-Fun's eyes widened. My daughter, you're too kind. That's why someone dared to poison you. Who does that Yue think she is, daring to lay a hand on you? If she doesn't die, I'm not sure what I'll do. 2. She had always thought that Qin Sheng was Qin Zixian's love rival, but who knew that another Yue would appear? 2. Gong Machin's face was gloomy, and he didn't say anything, quietly listening to the mother and daughter's words. Qin Zixian realized that the man's demeanor wasn't right, so she quickly changed the topic. Mom, don't be so arbitrary. Maybe it wasn't Yue. 2. He-Fan shook Qin Zixian's hand. Didn't the doctor already test you? Why are you so stupid to justify that woman at a time like this? 2. The doctor will find out if Yue put the poison in her, Gong Machin said coldly. Point two. Nye Feng walked into the room and said, President, the tests have all been done. There was indeed aconite in the fourth Miss Blood, but there was no aconite in the medicine found in Yue's bag. 2. He-Fan didn't understand. What do you mean? 2. What I mean is that the poison wasn't put in by Miss Yi. Because the two poisons are different, Nye Feng told He-Fan clearly. Point two. He-Fan's face froze. If it wasn't her, who else could it be? I don't think Zixian ate the poison, did she? I must find the person who attempted to murder my daughter, too. Well, I think Zixian is fine now. You stay with her in the hospital for a few more days to recover. I'll go back to investigate the case. Gong Machin strode out of the ward. Point two. Qin Zixian pounded the bed angrily. Mom, you're too direct. Look, you've driven third brother away in anger, too. Silly girl, how can I not be like this? Isn't it enough to have Qin Sheng to fight with over that man? And now Yue is in the picture. Do you still want to be Gong Machin's wife? He-Fan said. Point two. Qin Zixian pursed her lips. Third brother went abroad for a year and came back with a Yue. I don't feel that this Yue and third brother have a simple relationship. There's more to it, I'm certain. 2. Regardless of whether Yue was the one who poisoned you or not, we still need to lock her in jail. Even said point 2. Qin Zixin nodded. This was a good way to eliminate a love rival point 2. 2. In the Qin family's old mansion, Gong Machin walked up the stairs and knocked on Liang's door. Liang opened the door and leaned against it, looking at the man with a bewitching expression. Hey, President Gong, did you knock on the wrong door? Where's Qin Sheng's door? If you want to find a man to be in a couple with, I suggest you go to the gigolo shop. I'm a straight man, too. Gong Machin kicked Liang back. Liang darted away, and Gong Machin walked into the room point 2. Don't give me that nonsense. Did you ask someone to put the poison in Yue's bag? Hand over the person who did it, too. Liang let out a low laugh. Gong Machin, are you sick? In order to save your little lover, you came to me, thinking I was the murderer? I did not poison your sister. I did not harm your little lover, too. Yue is not my little lover. Gong Machin retorted point 2. She's not your little lover, but a doctor. If she goes to jail, at worst, you can find another doctor to treat you. Why are you so nervous? Or is there some reason you can't say? Liang's eyes narrowed into slits point 2. Gong Machin felt that Liang deserved a beating. He had been relying on Yue to support him. If Yue went to prison, of course, he wouldn't have anyone to treat him. 2. The poison in his body could not be cured by anyone, other than His Highness Yu. Only Yue could maintain him point 2. His girl had not entered university yet, and he had not arranged everything for her. He couldn't die now, and Yue naturally couldn't go to prison. 2. Who she is to me has nothing to do with you. If you don't hand over the person who did this, I guarantee that you won't be able to leave this room. His voice carried his viciousness point 2. What big words. Liang's expression changed. Gong Machin, I don't even want to leave this room because I want to sleep. But you, I guarantee that you will run out of this room very soon. 2. Gong Machin was stunned. He saw Liang's finger pointing behind him. He turned around and saw Qin Sheng's angry little face point 2. Qin Sheng, I've helped you find out the truth. Yue is his lover. He admitted it himself. Who is she to him? Said Liang, as if he wanted the world to be in chaos point 2. Qin Sheng's little face fell. She glared at Gong Machin and turned to run away. Qin Sheng. Gong Machin chased after her point 2. Liang dared to trick him. Liang, just you wait. He thought as he ran after Qin Sheng point 2. If you have guts, I'll see you soon. Duke Liang is lonely. Liang shouted point 2. He walked to the door and saw Gong Machin chasing Qin Sheng into Qin Sheng's room. He smiled coldly and closed the door. His cell phone rang, and he answered the call. Gong Machin didn't give you any trouble, did he? 2. Sikong Ju's voice came out of the phone. He didn't have any techniques to cause trouble for me. He's probably kneeling for forgiveness right now. Liang said point 2. He saw Qin Sheng coming over and purposely made it sound like Yue was Gong Machin's lover. With Gong Machin's nervousness towards Yue, how could Qin Sheng not be suspicious? 2. And Gong Machin definitely couldn't explain why he wanted to think of a way to get Yue out. How would he dare let Qin Sheng know that he was poisoned? 2. It's a pity that I can't see Gong Machin kneeling with my own eyes. Yue is courting death. How dare she put aconitum in my wine? Sikong Ju said. He had really underestimated His Highness Yu's title. He was a pharmacist. When he was 3 years old, he could concoct medicine to easily paralyze people. When he was 5 years old, he could detoxify many poisons point 2. That was because his master had placed poison in his body. If he hadn't detoxified it, he would have died. Other children's toys were game consoles. They played games. His games were to save all kinds of small animals that had been poisoned by his master point 2. His master's inhuman training and his innate sensitivity to medicine had earned him the title of His Highness Yu. He could tell the subtle differences between other people's colorless and tasteless medicines point 2. Aconite in red wine would affect the fragrance of the red wine. It would weaken the sour taste of the wine because the acid and alkali had neutralized it point 2. Therefore, he didn't touch the wine at all. He gave it to Qin Yunting when she walked over. It was considered bad luck for him to take revenge for Chu Xia point 2. Yue is in big trouble this time. Gong Machin won't live long without her. We can go back to China as soon as possible, said Liang too. It seems that the Duke is looking forward to bringing Qin Sheng back to China and being forced to marry her by his mother, said Sikong Ju. Point 2. Liang's eyes flashed with a wicked light as he stroked his chin. That's right. I've been training hard just to torture the little thing to death. 2. Thinking of the little vixen who wanted nothing to do with him made him want to hurt her. Point 2. In his mind, he imagined Qin Sheng begging him to stop. That little face, too. He couldn't stay calm anymore. Point 2. Yes. When we return to China, I'll hold a party in your castle to celebrate. Sikong Ju teased. Point 2. Get lost. It's my castle. You can't just hold parties there. Liang said. Point 2. Sikong Ju's forehead darkened. Men can go crazy if they hold it in for too long. Be careful of your kidney deficiency. I'll go and make some medicine for you, too. Bah, you're the one with a kidney deficiency. My kidneys are good, my legs are good, my body is good. Think about your Chu Xia if you have nothing to do. Liang retorted. Point 2. Thinking of Chu Xia, Sikong Ju fell into a bad mood. Keep your mouth shut about Chu Xia. Wait for me to make a medicine for you. I'll make you eat it, and you'll become a cripple, too. He hung up the phone angrily. Would Chu Xia be with Tao Bin? He sighed. Point 2. In the blink of an eye, he shook his head. What did she have to do with him? Liang turned off his phone and chuckled. Why was he so touchy around the subject of Chu Xia? 2. In Qin Sheng's room, Gong Machin sat by the bed and was trying to coax the little woman out of the duvet she was wrapped in. Point 2. Still angry? I've already told 10 jokes. Gong Machin's hand patted the girl. Point 2. Qin Sheng, who was under the blanket, had a severe frown on her face. Was there anything colder than Gong Machin telling jokes? 2. If you heard one, you would know what a cold joke was. Though he was telling jokes, he was still avoiding her question. 2. The man's voice came from outside the blanket again. If you don't come out, I'll lift the blanket. Gong Machin said. Point 2. Qin Sheng frowned. If he didn't explain clearly, he wouldn't be able to touch her. 2. She kicked the man. Get lost. You're not allowed to come in. 2. Gong Machin's voice sank. Then I'm leaving. 2. Qin Sheng was shocked and immediately lifted the blanket. If you don't explain clearly what your relationship is with Yi Wei, don't even think about leaving. 2. He wanted to leave without explaining clearly? No way. She wouldn't let him. Point 2. Gong Machin curled his lips and pulled the girl into his arms. If he didn't force her, why would she talk to him? 2. Don't listen to Liang. Yi Wei is only my doctor. 2. Qin Sheng struggled in the man's arms. If she's only your doctor, don't bother about her. 2. She might just only be a doctor, but we can't leave her to die. Moreover, it's Liang who harmed her this time. Gong Machin said. Point 2. Qin Sheng's arm hooked around the man's neck. She won't die. At most, she'll be imprisoned for a few years. I won't let you save her, too. She coquettishly rubbed herself against the man's body. She wasn't afraid that her aunt would snatch Gong Machin away from her. However, this Yi Wei made her inexplicably afraid. That was because Yi Wei knew a lot of things about Gong Machin that she didn't know. Point 2. Gong Machin's expression tensed up. If he didn't save Yi Wei, he would surely die. He might die early. However, this was an order from this little woman. You're not allowed to be naughty. Gong Machin's hand pinched the little girl's nose. She has done me a favor. I must save her. 2. The man's cold voice made Qin Sheng realize that the man had already disobeyed her twice for Yi Wei. Point 2. The first time was when they were eating lobster in the restaurant, and she'd wanted the man to eat it. But because Yi Wei didn't allow it, he did not eat it. And now, when she said that she didn't want him to save her, he was going against her again by saying that he must save her. Point 2. To be honest, Qin Sheng was just testing him. If he didn't save her, she would tell him to save Yi Wei. After all, Yi Wei was his doctor. Point 2. But now, all her plans were muddled. Gong Machin said that he wanted to save Yi Wei. Point 2. Her heart was hurting. She could never disobey his words, no matter what. Point 2. Are you sure that you have to save her? Her lips formed into a straight line as she looked at him with a cold face. Point 2. Gong Machin laughed lightly and scratched the woman's small nose. I already said that she's only my doctor. Why are you still so jealous? My little fox, I don't think you need to be jealous anymore. 2. The primary mistake was to ignore him, and the upgraded version would be to start a full-blown argument. Point 2. The women around him were often punished by Qin Sheng. At that time, she was 10 years old and he was 20 years old. Point two. Those women were glued to chairs, had spiders put in their skirts by her, or she put caterpillars on their clothes. Point two. It was also at that time when he realized that Qin Sheng's feelings for him were different. She seemed to have strong feelings for her uncle. After discovering her abnormal feelings, he was puzzled for a long time. After all, she was too young, and he knew that he couldn't be with her. Point two. However, no matter what he taught her, he was her uncle, and she still loved him as she always did, and it grew with each passing day. Later, for the sake of the company's stability, he had no choice but to change his personal staff to boys. Point two. At one point, the news that his company only recruited male employees caused many people to suspect that he wasn't straight. Point two. He realized his true feelings for her when she was 15 years old. She had received her first love letter from a boy, and he had hidden it from her. Point two. He had accidentally found the letter in her school bag. It was clear that the letter hadn't been discovered by her, because it hadn't been opened yet. Looking at the childish words of the boy, his heart tightened. His girl had actually been liked by someone else. Point two. Only then did he understand that the person who really couldn't let go was him. Because he couldn't let go of Qin Sheng, it had clearly caused her to sink deeper and deeper and made her feel so strongly for him. Point two. His understanding was exceptionally clear at that moment. His girl could only be his, no matter what price he had to pay. He had destroyed the letter, abandoned all taboos, and loved her wholeheartedly. Point two. He would never tell her that Hasiki had once given her a love letter. Before his thoughts could jump out of his mind, he said, "Be good, don't be naughty, too." "Who's being naughty?" Qin Sheng pouted angrily. Point two. Gong Machen's forehead darkened. "Be good. We agreed to wait until you entered university." He came up with a reason. Point two. Qin Sheng's lips curved into a fox-like smile. "We agreed that you wouldn't save Yi Wei. If you don't agree, I won't allow you to save her, too." She spoke her words unreasonably. She kind of knew she was being hard on the man, but that was how it had to be. Point two. Gong Machen patted the girl's head with his big hand. "Rest well. I'll be back in a while, too." He turned around and walked out of the room. Qin Sheng wrapped herself in the blanket and waited for her man to come back. She closed her eyes. Her biological clock was very accurate. At that moment, she became so sleepy that she wanted to sleep. Point two. Liang felt a chill on his body. He was awakened from his sleep. What the hell? He looked up and saw the figure of a man standing in front of his bed. Point two. F***CK. Gong Machen, where are you playing at? If you dare to assault me in the middle of the night, I'll sue you, too. Gong Machen's eyes turned cold. He grabbed the collar of Liang's pajamas. "I think I'll sue you for murder first. The medicine that you asked someone to put in Yi Wei's bag was aconite, but Qin Zixian's blood was found to contain monkshood. Therefore, it can be proved that Qin Zixian's poison and the poison in Yi Wei's bag were not of the same type. Do you want me to find more evidence so that the person that did this can be arrested? Or do you want to hand him over to me directly, too?" With this discovery, he could find a lawyer to represent Yi Wei in a lawsuit. Because the poisons were not of the same type, Yi Wei had a high chance of winning. Of course, there was still the person who put the poison in Yi Wei's bag to deal with. He just had to discover them first, too. Liang's lips twitched. He didn't expect that the medicine that Yi Wei gave Sikong Ju wasn't just aconitum, but also aconite. Point two. "Gong Machen, if I don't give them to you, what can you do to me?" "Really?" Liang asked arrogantly. Point two. Gong Machen laughed coldly. "When the incident happened, I had Nie Feng get someone from the hotel to seal off all the surveillance cameras. How long do you think it will take for my people to find the person who secretly planted the poison on Yi Wei? 2. Wait until I find the video and catch your people. Will your people be able to survive my interrogation? His medicine was given by His Highness you. I don't mind exposing their identity." 2. Liang's lips twitched. Gong Machen was indeed ruthless. He wasn't afraid that his men would be caught, but the identity of His Highness couldn't be exposed. Point 2. That was their agreement from the beginning, too. When he thought of that agreement, he instantly felt a pain in his balls. No, he didn't want to think about the agreement. That gave him a feeling of troubled. He pushed those thoughts to the back of his mind. Point 2. You want him, right? However, I can only give him to you to take the blame for Yi Wei's actions. He bit the bullet point too. He could ask for someone to take the blame for Yi Wei, but he couldn't implicate others point too. Sure, I'm only looking for you to calm things down. I don't want to implicate others. Otherwise, do you think you can still sleep so beautifully? Gong Machin said point two. Liang's anger rushed straight to his forehead. What kind of tone was that? A threat? If he handed over the person, should he still thank Gong Machin? 2. Get out of my room. In half an hour, the person will come to the Public Security Bureau, and you and your people can do as you please. He roared angrily point two. Tell your people to hurry up. I'm afraid that my people are too capable. It won't take me long to find out who the person who secretly released the poison is. When that time comes, I'll be very conflicted. Should I reveal the identity of Highness Yu or not? 2. Gong Machin, are you done groveling? Why are you showing off in front of me? If you don't leave now, I'll make you regret it. Liang shouted point two. And just so that we're clear, my Qin Sheng will never listen to your provocations. What a joke. Gong Machin wanted Liang to die of anger point two. He turned around and walked out of the room, returning to Qin Sheng's room. Liang was about ready to explode with anger. Even if he knew that Gong Machin couldn't really do anything to Qin Sheng, he was still angry. He felt that the girl was kind of like a voodoo doll, making him only want to control her point two. In Qin Sheng's room, the lights were still on, and the little girl's head was exposed under the blanket. She looked very sweet when she was sleeping soundly point two. Gong Machin's fingers gently brushed the girl's messy hair off her forehead, and he lowered his head to kiss the top of her head point two. The corners of his lips unconsciously revealed a gentle smile. There was nothing that made him happier than looking at her sweet smile. He knew that she would fall asleep when the time came, so he left. He didn't know that the little girl would be so angry when she woke up the next day point two. The smile on his lips grew wider. Then there was a crashing sound. He turned his head and saw the little hamster running around in the cage. He glared at the little thing, and the little thing blinked its eyes at him, looking innocent and cute point two. Gong Machin chuckled. Little Aoi was as cute as her master. He walked over to pick up the hamster and spider cages and put them in the bathroom. He was afraid that the noise made by the two little things would disturb his girl's sleep point two. After that, he turned on the night light and turned off the big light. He took another look at the little woman before leaving her bedroom point two. At the police station, Yi Wei was released. It seemed that the person who'd framed her had been found point two. Yi Wei walked out of the police station quickly. Her eyes fell on Nie Feng in disappointment. She thought Gong Machin would come. Miss Yi, the president asked me to take you home, Nie Feng said point two. Yi Wei walked past. Thank you, too. She followed Nie Feng into the car. Her brows were furrowed. Although this matter had been settled by Gong Machin, she had offended His Highness Yu. How could she get the antidote from you now? 2. The next day, Qin Sheng woke up. She rubbed her eyes and thought about what had happened last night. Gong Machin had lied to her. He had run away, too. The alarm clock on her phone rang, and she saw the news on a point, too. Yi Wei had been framed for jealousy and the poisoning Qin Zixian. The real culprit was caught, and Yi Wei was released point, too. She got out of bed angrily and went to the bathroom to wash up. She was so angry that Yi Wei was rescued, too. When she washed up and opened the door, she bumped into a man who was coming into her room point, too. Why are you in such a hurry? Are you hurt? Gong Machin raised his hand to touch the girl's forehead point, too. Qin Sheng pushed the man's hand away. She didn't want him to touch her. She looked at the man angrily and said, You lied to me, too. Gong Machin looked at the little woman's angry face and smiled. She looked so good when she was angry. Who lied to you? When I came back, you were asleep, too. He lowered his head and whispered in the girl's ear. Qin Sheng pushed the man away. She was asleep, but why hadn't he woken her up? He was obviously lying to her, too. I don't believe you. Do you think I'm a child, too? Did he really think she hadn't grown up? Did he think she would believe him just because he said it, too? You don't believe me? Gong Machin's fingers gently lifted the girl's chin point, too. Qin Sheng's temper flared up. I don't believe you, too. She roared angrily. Regardless of whether her requests were reasonable or unreasonable, he would unconditionally agree to them. Only when it involved Yi Wei. It seemed like the law between them had to be broken, too. She had a feeling that Yi Wei and Gong Machin must be hiding something from her. And this time, the man had saved Yi Wei, which further proved Yi Wei's position in his heart. If she didn't figure out their relationship, she wouldn't be with Gong Machin, too. She pried open the man's fingers that held her chin, walked around the man, and went straight downstairs. Gong Machin turned around to chase after her, but he saw Li Ong leaning against the wall in the corridor like a monster. Point two. Tisk, TSK, didn't you say that your Qinsheng wouldn't be provoked by me? Looks like your relationship is on thin ice. Liang stood up straight and walked past the man proudly. Point two. Liang, you should be more understanding. Qinsheng is angry because she can't wait for it, Gong Machin warned Liang. He couldn't let this man take advantage of the situation. Point two. Let's wait and see. If we don't make it to the next moment, who will know the ending? This game is getting more and more interesting. I'm looking forward to the ending. Liang walked down the stairs, his footsteps echoing. Point two. Gong Machin's brow was deeply creased. What would be his ending, too? As Qinsheng's exam was approaching, his time was getting shorter and shorter. He didn't try to coax the little woman anymore. She was distancing herself from him, and the poison in his body was getting stronger and stronger. He was afraid that he would hurt her. The distance was probably a good thing. Point two. Nie Feng, take Qinsheng to school today. I'll go look for Sikong Ju, Gong Machin instructed. Point two. Qinsheng looked gloomily at Nie Feng, who was taking her to school. Her little mouth was pursed. If she were to throw a tantrum with him, he wouldn't send her to school. If a stinky man dared to be angry with her, where would his tolerance for her be? 2. Yi Wei's appearance flashed through her mind again. It seemed that ever since Yi Wei appeared, she and Gong Machin were different. She got into Nie Feng's car angrily and went to school. Point two. 2. Gong Machin strode into a luxurious private clubhouse. Point two. I'm sorry, sir. This is a private clubhouse. You can't enter if you're not a member. The bodyguard at the door stopped Gong Machin. Point two. Gong Machin's brows sank. The so-called private clubhouse was actually a clubhouse for high-class socialites. He naturally wouldn't be a member of such a place. Point two. I'm not a member. Go and tell your boss that Gong Machin wants to come in, he said coldly. Point two. We don't dare to alarm the boss. Why don't you apply for a membership card now? The annual fee is only 5 million yuan. You can come anytime. The girls inside are free to eat and drink with. You have to pay for the night alone. The bodyguard hurriedly introduced his family's business. Point two. Gong Machin raised his hand slightly, and the bodyguard behind him immediately rushed over and pressed the bodyguard who'd stopped him against the wall. Point two. He strode into the small building, and behind him were the sounds of several bodyguards fighting. A pair of bodyguards ran down from upstairs. There were several surveillance cameras scattered around. If someone stirred up trouble, they would easily be stopped. Point two. Stand there. Do you dare to barge in? A bodyguard who'd ran down the stairs shouted. Point two. What are you making trouble for? The guests are all sleeping. Are you courting death? A woman's voice echoed from upstairs. Point two. Boss, someone broke into our club, one of the bodyguards explained. Point two. The boss walked downstairs and saw the man standing in the middle of the hall. Point two. She slapped her bodyguard's face. Be Astor Star, what are you thinking? You didn't even recognize CEO Gong, too. The female boss used all her strength and hit the bodyguard so hard that he turned around twice. Before he could speak again, the female boss grabbed his collar and knelt him at Gong Machin's feet. Point two. CEO Gong, please forgive him for being blind and offending you. She slapped the back of the bodyguard's head and knocked him to the ground. Point two. Gong Machin snorted. You fan, your rules are getting stricter. Even I can't enter anymore. 2. You fan smiled. It's all because of you. You look down on a place like ours. These servants didn't recognize you because they haven't seen your face in a while. I gave you a few Supreme membership cards, but you threw them all away. I guarantee that the next time you come, they will bring your car in, too. Gong Machin chuckled. I'm looking for Sikong Ju. Which room is he in, too? Yu Fan paused for a moment and then said, he's in the Constellation room. I'll get someone to take you there. The Constellation room was the main suite that they had renovated. The entire room was blue. The projector was on the semicircular dome, projecting specks of starlight. It made the person who was staying in the room feel like they were in the wild point too. Gong Machin snorted coldly. This Sikong Ju was quite good at enjoying himself. He followed the bodyguard who led the way up the stairs. Sister Yu Fan, if we reveal the information of our guests, they will come to us for compensation, too. A woman's delicate voice was heard. She had a cigar between her fingers, and a long purple dress clung to her slender figure. She was a previous Miss World, and because her family was in debt, she had no choice but to come here and become the top princess. Therefore, to her, she had the right to question the guest point too. Chi-Chi, what do you know? He is someone we can't afford to offend. Moreover, he saved me 1 year. Even if I accompany Mr. Sikong for any amount of money, I will compensate him. Yu Fan said point two. Chi-Chi seemed to have discovered a new treasure. So, you and CEO Gong are still having an affair? Tell me, how is he? Is he strong, too? Yu Fan laughed self-deprecatingly. That year, my modeling company lost money. I was pinned down in an alley by a few hooligans. Coincidentally, Gong Machin saw it and sent someone to save me. It's as simple as that. He isn't someone who will get involved casually. People like us aren't even fit to carry his shoes, too. Chi-Chi's eyes flickered. Wow, that's hard to believe. But if it's true, then what can I say, too? He's a dragon. So, we can only look up to him. I advise you not to have any designs on him, or else I guarantee that your death will be very ugly. Yu Fan warned her subordinate princess point two. The constellation room upstairs was opened by the bodyguard with a spare key. Gong Machin walked into the dark and smoky room. The room was as dark as the night. The projector kept changing the appearance of the starry sky. There was an ambiguous atmosphere in the room, and there was also the aroma of passion point two. The floor and the bed were in a mess. The two of them were entangled in each other's arms and were still sleeping on the bed point two. Gong Machin turned on the light of the crystal lamp, and the room suddenly lit up. The person in the silk quilt was awakened by the sudden light point two. The woman screamed and quickly wrapped herself up in the quilt point two. F***CK. Who dares to break into my room? Sikong Ju cursed and blinked his eyes to try to adapt to the light point two. I dare to break into your room. Should we talk about it here or outside? Gong Machin asked point two. Sikong Ju put his hand on his head. If there were two people in this world who dared to break into his room, one of them would be Liang, and the other would be Gong Machin too. For God's sake, get out. I want to get up without prying eyes on me, he said coldly point two. He remembered that his identity had been exposed. Gong Machin had come to look for him, but he didn't expect the commotion to be so big point two. I'll give you 3 minutes. Gong Machin said coldly point two. F***CK. You try taking a shower in 3 minutes. Sikong Ju shouted point two. That is my limit. I will only wait for 3 minutes. You just got to try and get ready in that time. If you don't come out in 3 minutes, what will be the consequences, too? Gong Machin's voice drifted to the bed point two. Sikong Ju was so angry that his temples hurt. Was there such an unreasonable person in this world? However, he knew that Gong Machin's words were never a joke point two. He rushed into the bathroom and used his fastest speed to get ready in 3 minutes point two. His hands were fastening the buttons of his shirt, and his head was dripping with water. He had never been in such a sorry state before point two. A bodyguard informed him to go to the small living room to find Gong Machin. Sikong Ju was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Had he ever been treated with such contempt before? 2. Did your master tell you what to do if I didn't make it out in 3 minutes? 2. The president said that if you didn't make it out in 3 minutes, I should drag you out directly, whether you're wearing clothes or not. 2. Damn it. Sikong Ju only wanted to curse. So, if he hadn't made it out, would he have been dragged out naked and paraded on the streets? 2. He followed the bodyguard into the small living room. Yu Fan was busy making tea for the man in the room point two. Sikong Ju walked in and sat on the sofa opposite Gong Machin point two. I'm here, speak. There was obvious anger in his tone point two. Gong Machin gestured for Yu Fan to leave. I don't like to beat around the bush. Name your price for what I want. Sikong Ju chuckled. Price? Does CEO Gong think that he can afford the price that I want, too? Of course I can afford it. I guarantee that I will offer a higher price than Liang. It doesn't matter if it's your personal safety or money, Gong Machin said. Point 2. If Sikong Ju betrayed Liang and gave Gong Machin the antidote, he would naturally be responsible for Sikong Ju's safety too. It seems like CEO Gong has put in a lot of effort. You even know that I'm greedy. Unfortunately, no matter how much you offer, you won't be able to buy it. Even if you point your gun at me, it will still be the same, Sikong Ju said. Point 2. Oh, it seems that Liang and you're not just about transactions on money. Gong Machin asked. Point 2. Yes, it's not just a matter of money. If it's just money, I wouldn't mind earning more money. However, I can't go back on my agreement with him, Sikong Ju said. Point 2. That was an agreement that he couldn't go back on even if he lost his life. He had no choice too. If that's the case, I wonder if I can buy another medicine that can make people fake their deaths. If you don't take the antidote within 5 hours, the person would die naturally. But if you take it, you can still live, Gong Machin said. Point 2. I can make this medicine, but it's not my usual forte. I could usually make it last 10 hours. After all, there may be accidents, so I always push the time limit to the maximum, said Sikong Ju. Point 2. Gong Machin's eyes narrowed. You've never made it so it lasts for 5 hours, too? No, answered Sikong Ju. Point 2. Who else can make the medicine besides you? Asked Gong Machin. Point 2. Sikong Ju paused for a moment. A person appeared in his mind. In an instant, he smiled. The world is so big. I'm not the only one with this ability to. Then how many people do you think have this ability? Gong Machin continued to ask. He was clearly desperate for the answer. Point 2. There's one more person, Sikong Ju said. I'll give this information to President Gong. As for the rest, I don't know anything else. 2. Some money could be earned, and some money could not be earned. He could tell what kind of money he could take here. Point 2. Gong Machin's eyes were dark, looking bleak. Point 2. He stood up and said softly, Thank you. 2. When he walked to the door, he stopped again. Last question, is the poison in my body the poison you made? 2. Sikong Ju shrugged. I don't like making poisons. My master taught me to make antidotes. I can make them if I have to, but I don't like doing it. After all, I have a bottom line and integrity. 2. He wouldn't say that he was the best person in the world, but he was not enough to make poisons and buy them. Point 2. Gong Machin did not say another word. He nodded lightly and walked out of the room. Sikong Ju looked at the man's back. He could clearly feel the bleak aura around him. For some reason, it made him feel sad too. Even after so many years, his memory of Gong Machin's back was still fresh in his mind. Point 2. Gong Machin walked out of the clubhouse, escorted by 2 rows of bodyguards. Niefeng opened the car door and waited for the man to sit properly. He closed the door and drove back to the Gong Group's building. Point 2. The man who hadn't spoken since leaving the clubhouse made Niefeng somewhat unable to understand his thoughts. Even he didn't dare to say a word. Point 2. Gong Machin returned to his office and ordered that no one be allowed to disturb him without an order. Point 2. He took out a photo from the drawer of his desk and stared at the silver-masked man. Point 2. If Sikong Ju hadn't poisoned him, then it could only be him, the man in the silver mask. Point 2. His heart felt cold. It was as if a sharp knife had cut through his flesh. He would rather that the man had poisoned him with someone else's poison, but the poison in his body was personally concocted by the man in the silver mask. 2. He closed his eyes in pain. He really wanted to know, when he concocted the poison for him, did he intend for him to suffer like this? 2. This was a kind of pain that was silent and lonely, and there was nothing he could say, too. There was no one else in this world who could hurt him as deeply as that man had. Point 2. Gong Machin stood in front of the window. No matter how warm the sunlight was, it didn't seem to be able to warm his heart. Point 2. If that person could do such a thing to him, what about Qin Sheng? 2. Thinking of Qin Sheng, all his thoughts were clear. He strode out of the office and asked Niefeng to drive back to the Qin family's old residence. Point 2. In the study, Qin Zhe was a little surprised that Gong Machin had come back, because he never skipped work during the day. Point 2. Did something happen? He asked in his old voice. Point 2. Gong Machin took out a stack of photos and placed them in front of Qin Zhe. These were taken by my people. 2. Qin Zhe picked up the photos and looked at them. Qin Yunting was in every photo. Beside her were several of the women, as well as some big bosses. Point two. They seemed to be having a good time, and there was even women stripping in some of the photos. Point two. He slapped the photos on the table. Yunting has gone too far, too. She didn't go too far by bringing those small celebrities to accompany her clients. Instead, the clients she accompanied were all important clients of the Qin family. She's trying to poach the Qin family's clients. As far as I know, there are already many companies that have given her and Yin Fame money and asked them to help poach clients, Gong Machin said. Point two. Qin Zhe pressed his hand on his throbbing temple. His granddaughter poaching his own clients. She was really insane. She had crossed a line. Point two. I've already chased her out. I just wanted her to calm down and restrain her temper. I didn't expect her to become even worse, too. I heard that second sister-in-law went to look for Yunting, but she was chased out by Yunting. Gong Machin said coldly. Point two. The family is unfortunate. Zheng Min was too arrogant and indulged the child. That's why Yunting developed a character of being unable to distinguish right from wrong. Qin Zhe felt almost helpless. Point two. Since that's the case, the Qin family must make plans now, Gong Machin said. Point two. Qin Zhe looked up at Gong Machin. What do you mean, to? Write a will, Gong Machin said. Point two. Qin Zhe was stunned. I still have to consider this, too. You know that no matter how foreign the company is, it's a waste of money. Qin Yunbua has the reputation of a young master, someone still at school. It's said that he's involved with several schoolgirls. He has even given away a few villas. I don't think he has the ability to support the Qin family's business. 2. Gong Machin's voice hit Qin Zhe's sore spot. It was a pity that his favorite eldest son had died. Otherwise, he would have had an heir that he was satisfied with too. But Qin Zhe paused. He had something he was worried about. Point 2. After all, he and Qin Sheng's maternal grandfather's family had a feud. If his property was given to Qin Sheng, what would happen if Qin Sheng took over her maternal grandfather? His Qin family's property couldn't be taken by another family, especially one that he had a feud with. What would happen to the Qin name then? It would be gone too. If you leave your property to Qin Sheng, I guarantee that she will stay with the Qin family forever, and all my property will be left to her too. I will ensure the safety of her and the Qin family. Gong Machin said. Point 2. Qin Zhe had waited for Gong Machin to promise safety for many years too. If you want to marry Qin Sheng, you will have to marry her. Your child will have a surname Qin, he said. Gong Machin's heart was filled with bitterness. I will not marry Qin Sheng, but I will choose a good man for her and let her be happy for the rest of her life. 2. Qin Zhe was stunned. After a moment, he seemed to have understood something, and he nodded his head weakly. If your surname was only Gong, how good would that be, too? Gong Machin was indeed unable to marry Qin Sheng. Qin Zhe's eyes closed in pain. Gong Machin's lips formed into a straight line. Whether he married Qin Sheng or not, it had nothing to do with his surname. For Qin Sheng, he was willing to give up everything. It was just that he couldn't let Qin Sheng be in any danger. Point 2. Write down the will. I'll bring it to the notary. This matter will be kept secret until your death, he said coldly. Point 2. Qin Zhe took out a pen and paper and wrote down the will. Qin Sheng would inherit all the property of the Qin family after his death. Point 2. This was the best outcome he could think of. In fact, if Qin Sheng didn't marry Gong Machin, it would be more beneficial to the Qin family, as Gong Machin's property would be given to Qin Sheng. Without a doubt, the Qin family's assets would double. Qin Zhe could calculate this debt. Point 2. With Gong Machin's love for Qin Sheng, he believed that he could find the perfect husband for her. His old eyes were droopy, but they still gleamed like an eagle's. If that was the case, Qin Sheng's husband would naturally have a certain amount of assets. Point 2. From then on, the Qin family would be a force to be reckoned with, too. As Qin Zhe's will was written, he now believed that when the Qin family was in Qin Sheng's hands, it would become the most powerful family in the country, too. Gong Machin took the will and went to notarize it. Only after notarization would it have legal effect. Point 2. In the corridor, Hefan stared at Gong Machin from afar. What was the reason for this man's sudden return? She was curious. Point 2. Gong Machin was a workaholic. He would not skip work and come back for trivial matters. It must have been important for him to do that. Point 2. Her face sank as a bad feeling enveloped her heart. Point two. A moment later, Hefan's phone rang and she answered the call. Point two. Madam, I saw President Gong coming to the notary office. A man's voice came through the speaker of the phone. Point two. Hefan was shocked. He really went there? Show me what he wants to notarize, too. I don't dare to do that. You only told me to inform you when I saw President Gong coming to the notary office. I didn't promise to help you get the contents of the notarized documents. The man said immediately. Point two. This was Gong Machin. How could he dare to steal the notarized documents of a man like him? Did he still want to live, too? However, he could still earn some money from reporting that Gong Machin had come to the office's. Point two. Ifan didn't know what to say for a moment, and then she came out with it. I know you're taking a risk. How about this? If you can steal the contents of the documents for me, how about I give you 5 million, too? The man sneered. Madam, is my life worth 5 million? This is courting death. If I steal the contents of the documents, I'll have to emigrate. Otherwise, I'm afraid I won't have time to spend money. 2. Ifan pursed her lips. How much do you want, 2? 20 million. With that amount, I can take my wife and children to live abroad. Otherwise, I won't do it, the man threatened. Point two. Hefan was about to scream. Just to peek at the contents, she had to give 20 million, too. She gritted her teeth and replied, All right, I'll give it to you, too. She was the madam of the Qin family, but unfortunately, she didn't have the Qin family's assets. The old man only gave her pocket money every month, so she didn't have much money to hand. But she couldn't pass up on this opportunity, too. The man on the phone chuckled. Okay, give me half of the money now, and I'll steal it. Hefan hung up the call and used the phone to transfer 10 million yuan to the man. Point two. Her heart was in her throat. She was afraid that the thing she was most worried about would happen, too. She could barely control herself. She wanted to hit the wall. Later in the afternoon, the man finally called. Along with his voice, there was the noise of an airport speaker informing the passengers to board the plane. Point two. Madam, I've stolen the content. You transfer the other half of the money, and I'll tell you its contents, the man said. Point two. Okay, just you wait. Hefan hurriedly transferred the money. Point two. The man received a notification from the bank and called Hefan. The notarized contents are the inheritance. 2. Hefan was shocked. Who does the letter give the inheritance to? Tell me quickly. 2. The inheritance doesn't mention your name, the man said. Point two. Do you have the names of my son and daughter? Hefan asked. Point two. No, only CEO Gong's name and Qin Sheng's name. That's all. Don't call me again, said the man, and he hung up the phone. He removed the cover of the phone, took out the card, and threw it into a trash can. Point two. The woman beside him said, Hubby, are you sure about what you saw? What if it's not a will, too? The man's finger poked the woman's head. Don't be stupid. What do you know? These rich families are afraid that the inheritance will fall into the hands of others. Since she wanted to know about the inheritance, I told her. That way, she'll feel that her money hasn't been wasted. Point two. If I told her that her name is in the inheritance, won't she be exposed if she asks the Qin family's old master about it? I can't lie to her, even if I wanted to. I told her that the inheritance has been given to Gong Machin and Qin Sheng. Would she dare to ask Gong Machin about it? I don't think so, too. This was an opportunity given to me by the heavens. I've earned 20 million just by reporting the contents of a document. Let's go and live abroad now. Even if she tried to seek me out in the future, she won't find me, too. The man happily hugged his wife and carried his son onto the plane. He had earned 20 million just like that. He just had to get as far away from this place as possible so that he didn't suffer any retaliation. His life could be at stake. But it was worth it, too. Hefan couldn't believe what she had heard. The whole inheritance was going to Gong Machin and Qin Sheng. How much trouble had this news caused her, too? Hefan quickly informed her son, Qin Zhiwei, and daughter, Qin Zixian, and asked them to think of a way forward. She told them the old man's inheritance had been given to Gong Machin and Qin Sheng. Point two. Qin Zhiwei asked his mother and sister to calm down first. He would return to the country after settling matters in his current country. It was just a will. As long as the old man didn't die, it wouldn't take effect. They had plenty of time to think of a way to get the old man to withdraw at. Point two. 2. Qin Sheng hadn't seen Gong Machin since she came back from school. During the meal, the servant reported that Gong Machin had called and said that he wouldn't be coming back to eat point two. Qin Sheng's forehead was furrowed. She was still waiting for the man to apologize to her, but in the end, he wasn't coming too. She chewed the rice in her mouth and couldn't swallow it for a long time. Point two. Liang moved closer to Qin Sheng's ear. What's wrong? You look like you're not satisfied with your dishes, too. Qin Sheng turned around and glared at the man. Get lost, too. Liang's eyes narrowed. He was sure that there was something wrong with the girl. Otherwise, she wouldn't only reply to him with 2 words. Point two. Qin Sheng looked at the rice in her bowl gloomily. The Qin family couldn't leave any leftovers, but she really couldn't eat. Point two. As if sensing the little woman's dilemma, Liang took Qin Sheng's rice bowl and gobbled down her leftovers. Point two. Qin Sheng's lips pursed. She didn't care about the leftovers, anyway. She told Qin Zhe that she wanted a rest, and then went back to her room. Point two. It wasn't until later in the night when she fell asleep on the revision questions. After some time asleep, the voice of Gong Machin in the corridor disturbed her slumber. Point two. She rubbed her eyes, got up, and rushed out of the room. Uncle, too. Gong Machin was taken aback when he saw the girl running out. He had deliberately come back late, but he had not expected her to wait up for him. Point two. Qin Sheng looked at the man who was looking back at her. A sense of estrangement swept through her heart. She had never felt this way before, and this was the first time she felt that there was a distance between them. Point two. Her heart ached as she stared fixedly at Gong Machin. She wanted to see how he was going to explain where he had gone tonight. Point two. A moment later, Gong Machin started running towards the girl. However, when he approached her, he brushed past her. Point two. Gong Machin, tell me, where did you go? Why didn't you come home? Qin Sheng couldn't help but turn around and question the man. Point two. Gong Machin paused. It's getting late. Go to sleep, or you'll be late tomorrow, too. Qin Sheng ran to the man and looked at his face. In the past, whenever she pouted, he would hug her and coax her without hesitation. Point two. Let me ask you, where did you go tonight? She stood in front of him and asked loudly. Point two. Gong Machin's face was calm, but cold. I'm busy with work. I don't have time to play with you. After I finish my work, I'll be going to bed, too. He darted around the girl and walked away from her. His hands that hung by his sides were clenched into fists. Point two. His heart was beating painfully. He really wanted to pick her up and kiss her little face so that she wouldn't be angry. Point two. He knew all too well of her bad temper. That bad temper was created by him alone. Only he could settle her down. Point two. However, from today onwards, he couldn't do that with her anymore. He wanted her to slowly adapt to life without him. Point two. Qin Sheng's eyes were misty. He didn't even look at her. Point two. You said that Yi Wei is only your doctor. She turned around and chased after the man. Point two. Gong Machin lips formed into a straight line. She is only my doctor. I saved her because she was framed. If you don't believe me, I can't do anything about it. I can't just leave her to die because of your willfulness, too. The man walked past Qin Sheng again. Qin Sheng's aggrieved tears rolled down her face. She didn't really want to stand by and do nothing. She just wanted to see if he would listen to her. Even if he agreed not to save her, she would still let him save her. You're angry with me because I didn't want you to save Yi Wei, too. Gong Machin didn't stop. I'm not angry with you. You're the one who's angry, too. He strode into his room and closed the door. He didn't have any thoughts about Yi Wei. He'd save her to help him get the antidote. That was all. Point two. When he thought of the antidote, his heart tightened. A plan flashed through his mind. It was the only way he could get the antidote, but he really didn't know the success rate, too. Qin Sheng covered her mouth with her hand. Tears flowed down her cheeks. She admitted that she had lost her temper at him, but she just wanted him to settle her, to let her know that he still cared about her and loved her. That was all, too. Why did he not want to settle her? 2. The sound of a man's footsteps echoed behind her. Liang's devilish face came close to her face. Point two. Are you crying? You look so ugly when you cry. Hey, Machin, your niece is crying. Liang shouted on purpose. Point two. Qin Sheng glared angrily at Liang's face, wanting to tear it into pieces. Get lost. She raised her hand to push Liang away and returned to her bedroom. Point two. Liang shamelessly squeezed into the room before the girl closed the door. Point two. Are you really angry? I'm joking with you. Don't cry. 2. Qin Sheng raised her hand to push the man again. We'll let you in. Get out, too. Didn't you let me in? Liang said point 2. I told you to get lost. Qin Sheng roared point 2. Get lost? But I'm here now. Where do you want me to get lost to? On the bed, on the floor, on the table, in the bathtub, too. Without waiting for Liang to finish, Qin Sheng shouted. Nye Feng. Nye too. Liang raised his hand and covered Qin Sheng's mouth. Don't shout. I'm here to help you. It's fine if you don't listen, too. Qin Sheng blinked her eyes. She raised her hand and pushed the man's hand away. What do you want to help me with, too? Didn't you fight with Gong Machin? Do you want to anger him? I'll help you to anger him. Liang said point 2. How are you going to help me to anger him? Qin Sheng asked point 2. That's easy. Gong Machin has Yi Wei by his side, so you have me by your side. Let's be a couple. If he really has you in his heart, he will definitely try to get you back. If he doesn't, you can stay with me. Both of us are handsome men. You won't be at a disadvantage. Liang said point 2. Qin Sheng rolled her eyes at Liang. His narcissistic attitude always seemed to change her worldview point 2. However, his idea moved her. She turned and nodded point 2. It's settled, but I'm only pretending to be a couple. I'm in love with my uncle, too. Liang's lips twitched. Stupid girl. Let's see how I will torture you when I get you. He thought secretly point 2. She dared to say that she was in love with another man in front of him. If she said it once, he would punish her 10 times, too. Who wants to be a real couple with you? I just want to anger Gong Machin, he said stubbornly point 2. Although he'd said that, he secretly wanted to be in a real couple with her, too. Qin Sheng nodded her little head. All right, from tomorrow onwards, we'll pretend to be in a couple, too. Liang's lips curved into a devilish smile. With a thud, he placed his hand on the girl's door and placed her between him and the door. Darling, shouldn't we practice and do what couples do, too? Qin Sheng looked at the man who was pressing down on her. The corners of her lips curved into a fox-like smile. Such as, ah. Liang covered his face in pain. Slapping my face again, too. Well, what did you expect? I want to practice my slapping technique. So I'll start by slapping you, too. The girl's innocuous smile made Liang want to destroy her. He was going to write another debt on her head, too. He touched his face with his hand and suddenly lowered his head to kiss the girl's cheek. Darling, have you heard that a slap is a kiss? You hitting me is hinting that you want to kiss me, too. Qin Sheng was so scared that she pushed the man away. Her small face turned red. I don't want you to kiss me, too. Oh my God, a slap is a kiss? Is there even such a thing, too? F***CK. Maybe she shouldn't slap him again. Maybe it would be better to scold him, too. Suddenly, Liang's cell phone rang, interrupting his plan to flirt with the little woman point 2. He glanced at his cell phone. Go to sleep. I'll take you to school tomorrow, too. He turned around and walked out of the room, closing the door behind him. Qin Sheng heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Liang wouldn't pester her any longer point 2. At the end of the corridor, Liang walked over and looked at the man standing in front of the window. What's the matter? You're in a hurry to call me? Qin Sheng, and I can't be intimate because of you, he said smugly point 2. Gong Machin grabbed Liang's collar. Stay away from Qin Sheng, too. Liang threw a punch at Gong Machin. What a joke. I want to marry her. Do I need you to agree? Why don't you marry her if you have the guts?